Chapter 1268. But after thinking about it carefully, everyone felt that it made sense. As long as they killed Chu Yang, everything would be resolved. There wouldn't be any humiliation. Chu Yang dared to participate in the outer courtyard exam. How courageous was that? If Liu Yunpeng and the others didn't even have the courage to express their confidence, what else could they talk about? Xie Wanjin watched as Chu Yang kept getting his way. His expression grew increasingly gloomy, but he couldn't help but sneer. Wild Dog is participating in the exam. Could it be that I can't kill him? All of you are fools. Chu Yang didn't know what Xie Wanjin was thinking, and he didn't want to know either. He directly looked at the Soul Fusion Sage. Soul Fusion Sage, it's your turn. After a pause, he smiled. Do you need me to remind you of something? Only then will you be able to make the right decision. The Soul Fusion Sage didn't need Chu Yang to remind him. He knew what he was going to face. Today, if he didn't beg Chu Yang to stay, Liu Yunpeng, Xiao Chang'e, and Xiong Longxiang would be the first to not let him off. If it was just the three of them alone, the Soul Fusion Sage wouldn't be afraid. However, the three of them had their own factions behind them. It was only a matter of time before they dealt with him. His head might be chopped off by one of them one day. He was very sure of this because begging Chu Yang to stay was a great humiliation. However, if they were willing to do such a thing, what else wouldn't they do? Chu Yang came with great momentum. He was like a rolling snowball that couldn't be stopped. Wild Dog, I beg you to stay and participate in the Academy's exam. Someone will chop off your head. The Soul Fusion Sage roared. Clap clap. Chu Yang clapped and smiled. That's right. There are enmities and grudges. What's there to hide? If a man says he wants to kill someone, he will. Why is there a need to hide? Unlike some people who pretend to be aloof and can't see the situation clearly. How ridiculous. There's no need to look, Xie Wanjin. I'm talking about you. Chu Yang pointed at Xie Wanjin. I'll give you one last chance. It's not too late to beg me now, because this way, you'll suffer the least humiliation. I suggest you listen to my advice. Otherwise, it will be too late for regrets. After all, such a thing was a little strange. Not to mention the parrot and the others, even the students of the outer yard of the Sky Academy had never heard of or seen such a thing. Chu Yang actually asked Xie Wanjin, his enemy, to beg him for help again, and he was so sure about it. He could only use these few words to describe it. This was both magical and bizarre. Shangguan Lan saw Chu Yang's ability this time and was amazed. Such elegance caused her beautiful eyes to glow. Cultivation level was one aspect, but there was something more important than strength, and Chu Yang definitely did not lack that. Nangong Feiyan rejoiced in her heart. Fortunately, she changed her appearance. Fortunately, she was a holy disciple, and her identity was restricted. Otherwise, she would be like Liu Yunpeng and the others. Wild Dog, you're just a dog. Have you ever seen someone beg a dog? Xie Wanjin continued to maintain his demeanor. The expression on his face was indifferent, and there was a trace of ridicule at the corner of his mouth, as if someone could order him to do anything. Do you really think I can't do anything? Chu Yang sneered in his heart, and then said to Liu Yunpeng and the others, have you heard of sitting back and enjoying the fruits of others' labor? The money you worked so hard to earn, but before it could enter your pockets, it was snatched away by others. I don't know what you think, but if it were me, I would definitely beat this person until even his own mother can't recognize him. Swish. Xie Wanjin's expression suddenly changed. Also, all of you were humiliated, but only Xie Wanjin wasn't humiliated. What will others think of you? Will you all become his stepping stones? People will only talk about how wise and far-sighted Xie Wanjin is, while you all will only be ridiculed. So, I have a suggestion. Chu Yang looked at Xie Wanjin and smiled. The few of you can work together to injure him, and then there's no need to throw him away. If he dares to participate in the test, I will humiliate him to death. Although Wild Dog said it, I have to admit that it makes sense. Liu Yunpeng hated Xie Wanjin. If Xie Wanjin didn't scare Wild Dog and wake him up, how would things end up like this? Chapter 1269. That's right. Xiong Longxiang wasn't afraid of Xie Wanjin. I'll chop off anyone who dares to touch the money in my pocket. Xiao Chang'e also sneered and said, since you don't care about a dog so much, then, Xie Wanjin, I ask you to continue your nobility and don't touch my prey. Sage Merged Soul didn't say anything, but his inclination was obvious. He completely agreed with Liu Yunpeng's opinion. Otherwise, if Xie Wanjin managed to escape unscathed, where would he put his old face? How would he be able to face others? Wouldn't he be ridiculed? This was what Chu Yang was relying on. Xie Wanjin thought that it wouldn't be easy for him to be noble alone. Since ancient times, there had been so many outstanding people. How many of them could be noble? In the end, most of them merged into the filth of the world. How could these outstanding people be worse than him? Xie Wanjin's expression changed completely. He finally realized Chu Yang's intention, but it was too late. He was too naive. Chu Yang sneered and looked coldly at Xie Wanjin. He was very sarcastic. Xie Wanjin, Liu Yunpeng said coldly, now, you have two choices. Swear not to participate in the outer yard assessment and get lost. As for the other choice, we'll compete with you and see how noble you are. How dare you reach out and take the money in our pockets? Liu Yunpeng, do you want to die? Xie Wanjin's face suddenly turned red. He could no longer maintain his poise. He gritted his teeth and said, others may be afraid of your grandfather, the Rock King, but I, Xie Wanjin, am not. The Rock King. Chu Yang muttered in his heart, why do I have a grudge with rocks? It's the same in the Eastern Wilderness and the East Continent. However, the rock of the Eastern Wasteland would turn into a chicken in the Eastern Continent. Its wings would turn into a pair of chicken wings. Chu Yang had a very deep impression of this. As for the rocks in the East Continent, the Eastern Wilderness couldn't compare to them. Haha. When Liu Yunpeng heard this, he was even more furious. Although he was somewhat afraid of Xie Wanjin, how could he submit in front of others? Xie Wanjin, can you give it a try? Liu Yunpeng sneered. Liu Yunpeng, you better not regret this. As soon as Xie Wanjin said this, Chu Yang knew that he was an idiot. With Liu Yunpeng's arrogance, such a threat would only backfire. Therefore, he had already turned on the spectator mode. Liu Yunpeng sneered, then said to Xiao Chang'e and Xiong Longxiang, do the two of you want to continue watching the show? Do you want me to step back and watch the show as well? Xie Wanjin, scram. Xiao Chang'e shouted the word scram extremely clearly. Otherwise. Xiong Longxiang said coldly, Xie Wanjin, you'll have to bear the consequences. Xie Wanjin's face flushed red, then green, then white. He was actually forced to such a state in front of everyone, and his face was slapped loudly. At this time, he finally remembered what Chu Yang said just now, don't regret it. However, it was too late for him to regret. Now, he could either scram, compromise with Chu Yang, or be surrounded by Liu Yunpeng. But no matter what, he would become the most laughable person because his posture just now was too high. Although it was about the same as landing, the higher one climbed, the harder one would fall. Chu Yang looked at this scene with great interest. He was waiting for something interesting to happen. He said, Xie Wanjin, I'll interview you on behalf of everyone. May I ask what kind of mentality you have now? Do you want to scram with your tail between your legs, or be beaten up violently and rest for half a month? After a pause, he smiled and said, or, what if you beg me? However, I don't recommend that you choose the last option. After all, you're so noble and virtuous, and you're a real man. If you say you won't beg, then you won't beg. How can you go back on your words so easily? Wouldn't you become a joke? Adding fuel to the fire, he humiliated Xie Wanjin even more. When the parrot saw Chu Yang speak, its eyes couldn't help but light up. It also didn't expect this. It had to pay attention and learn more in the future. Chapter 1270. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Xie Wanjin was like a rat escaping into a pipe. There were people blocking both ends, and everyone was waiting to see which hole he would escape from. Damn it! Xie Wanjin was mad with hatred. He was actually forced to this point. How could he still talk about face? Now, every moment was endless torture for him, as if he was sitting on pins and needles. Every moment he delayed, His ugly state would be portrayed more vividly and vividly. He would be remembered by everyone and be nailed to the pillar of shame forever. He knew that he had to make a choice immediately. The worst choice was not to make a choice, and that was to delay. Xie Wanjin was also very clear about this point. If he gave up this time, it would be impossible for him to kill Chu Yang with his own hands, because it would definitely not be his turn. This point was so clear that when Xie Wanjin made his choice, it did not seem so difficult. Wild dog. Xie Wanjin gritted his teeth. His originally calm face instantly became ferocious. Streaks of blood even crawled out of his eyes as he roared crazily. Wild dog, I beg you to stay and participate in the assessment. Let me kill you. His voice was very loud, so loud that it seemed like everyone's eardrums were hurt from the vibration. The rolling voice even spread far and wide, and the echoes surged back. This was Xie Wanjin's choice. The students participating in the outer court assessment were both surprised and not surprised. They were a little uncertain of their own emotions, but one thing was certain: Chu Yang had completely succeeded, unbelievably succeeded. The worry in Liu Yunpeng's heart disappeared, and his killing intent suddenly surged. His gaze was extremely malicious as he stared at Chu Yang. Xiao Chang'e and Xiong Longxiang also withdrew their threats to Xie Wanjin, and all of them fell on Chu Yang. As for Xie Wanjin, needless to say, at least he thought that the person who wanted to kill Chu Yang the most now was him. However, Liu Yunpeng and the others might not agree with such a point of view. Only by killing Chu Yang would they be able to wash away the humiliation on their bodies. Only then would they be able to become the most dazzling star in the eyes of others. Those who missed it could only be a foil. Who would want to be a foil? Unsurprisingly, killing Chu Yang would become an extremely intense competition between the few of them. Chu Yang wasn't surprised at all. He wasn't surprised by Xie Wanjin's final choice either. Because whether it was Xie Wanjin or Liu Yunpeng, there weren't many ways for them to gain face. But, who will kill who? Chu Yang sneered in his heart. Under the gazes of the audience, he said to Sage Melted Soul, Sage, although I made a mistake just now, I can't refuse your kindness, so I can only reluctantly stay. Now, please start your performance. Many people can't wait. Indeed, many people couldn't wait any longer. Even Sage Merged Soul couldn't wait any longer. He couldn't wait to see Chu Yang being tortured to death with his own eyes. Listen up. Sage Melted Soul didn't continue to provoke Chu Yang. He didn't dare to. Instead, he said to the crowd, I've told you before that the outer court assessment this time is different from the previous ones. It wasn't just different, it was simply too different. This was the common thought of many outer court students. First, it was the postponement of the assessment, then everything that happened now. Every one of them could faintly foresee that a huge storm would erupt in the assessment. First of all, the venue chosen for the assessment this time is extraordinary. Sage Melted Soul said loudly, among the 3 assessment venues, 2 of them are relic. What? Chapter 1271. The students who were participating in the assessment were instantly overwhelmed with shock. Using the ruins as the venue for the assessment was at the level of the Inner Academy. Moreover, the degree of danger was such that even the students of the Inner Academy would suffer heavy casualties. Every time the Inner Academy assessment was held, only half of the people would be able to survive. The students who participated in the assessment were at a lower level than the students in the inner yard. If they participated in the assessment, it would be a miracle if 1/3 of them could come out alive. Soul Merging Sage, are you mistaken? Using a relic as the assessment site should be an assessment at the level of the inner yard, right? Isn't it suicide for us to participate in an assessment at the level of the inner yard? Soul Merging Sage, every relic is extremely dangerous. There are even extraterrestrial demons lurking in it. Don't you think about it again? After the students recovered from their shock, they immediately burst into loud voices of doubt. There was an uproar, and some of them were even cursing. If you think it's dangerous, you can choose not to participate and wait for the outer yard assessment next year. Soul Merging Sage was prepared for this, and his expression did not change at all. Then he said, however, although there are great dangers, there are also great opportunities and even great opportunities. The whole area fell silent, and everyone listened attentively. Chu Yang was the same. He knew a lot about the outer yard assessment, but there were many details that he did not know. The 3 transmission formations will send you to 3 places, namely, Soul-merging sage pointed at the 3 transmission formations and said loudly, the first transmission formation will send you to the Lost Land. The Lost Land. Suddenly, the hearts of the students shook violently. The exiled grounds were said to be full of mysteries. Some people who entered would lose one of their 3 spiritual souls or 7 physical souls, but some people who entered would gain an extra physical soul or soul. It was said that if one's martial soul was destroyed, even if it was completely erased, the martial soul could be recovered after entering the Lost Land. It was equivalent to finding the lost martial soul in the Lost Land, so it was called the Lost Land. In addition, the Lost Land had a great effect on improving one's 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls. Therefore, although it was extremely dangerous and mysterious, many people still went there. The exiled grounds were shared by the 6 great academies. At this moment, Chu Yang could clearly sense that when Xia Wanjin and the others heard the word severed world, their expressions couldn't help changing. Their reaction made Yang Kai deeply realize how dangerous the so-called severed world was. The coexistence of risk and opportunity had silenced the crowd. In the past, not to mention the outer court students, even the inner court and elite court students weren't qualified to enter the severed world. But now, just by participating in the outer court exam, they could actually enter a place like the severed world, so what could they complain about? Sage Melted Soul was satisfied and continued, I think you'll be more excited about the second relic, it's the Land of Frost. The Land of Frost. Boom. The crowd immediately exploded. Even Shangguan Lan and Nangong Feiyan were surprised when they heard this. Sage, are you sure this is the Land of Frost? That's right. The sage confirmed that it was the Land of Frost. You didn't lie to us, did you? The Land of Frost. Is that possible? Everyone was incomparably shocked. To be exact, they were in disbelief because this was the Land of Frost. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes slightly. Could it be the Land of Frost? Chapter 1272. In order to transform into a Kuanping, young Master Huang Yaro's father devoted all his efforts to the study of Kuanping. The Land of Frost was one of them, and there was an ice Kuan in it. A Kuan fish was a Kuan fish. There was no such thing as ice or fire. But now it seemed that there was. Chu Yang quickly confirmed all this from the discussion of the crowd. The Land of Frost was originally a vast ocean. An ice Kuan from the deity's world invaded the heavenly spirit world and fought with the leader of the Sky Academy. Because of the ice Kuan, the vast ocean became a world of ice. It was said that both of them died in the end. This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was the secret of time and space of the Sky Academy, the Xiaoyaro Gate. The ice Kuan was also very good at the skill of space. To be exact, the Kuanping was also very good at the skill of space. The Kuanping relied on the skill of space to roam freely in the universe, which was much more profound than the Sky Academy's skill of space. Therefore, even though the ice Kuan had not transformed into a Kuanping, it was better at it than the leader of the Sky Academy. That was why it could kill the leader of the Sky Academy with a lower realm. Therefore, in the deepest part of the Land of Frost, there was a secret skill of space and time. Many people, including the Sky Academy, were eager to explore it, but they could not enter the Land of Frost at all. Therefore, the soul-melting sage announced that one of the places in the test was in the Land of Frost. How could they not be surprised? The soul-melting sage smiled at the reaction of the students. Now, no one would be delayed in the test. He himself had never been to the Land of Frost. The reason why it was opened was not that simple. The Sky Academy wanted to explore that space with the help of the student. The soul-melting sage would not say it explicitly, but he would tell the students about the dangers in the Land of Frost. Be quiet. Don't be too happy. The Land of Frost has just been opened. The passage to it has not been explored yet, so the danger is unknown. You need to know and pay attention to it. After a pause, he emphasized again, you have heard it clearly. Immediately, there was a dead silence in the square. There was no sound at all. Even Chu Yang had already frowned at this time, they just opened up a passage to go in. This means that they are pathfinders. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. If such a huge pie were to fall from the sky, one would have to be able to catch it to eat it. I'm afraid it's not that simple. In fact, when Chu Yang heard about the Land of Frost, he already had a choice in his heart. Which of the 3 ruins should he choose? But now, he hesitated. From the desolate demon prince, he definitely knew more about the secrets of the Kuan Peng than anyone else. The child of the sea god claimed that he was a Kuan fish, but in reality, he was only close. Otherwise, the child of the sea god wouldn't have needed to cooperate with the desolate demon prince. Since Chu Yang had all of these, he naturally desired the complete Kuan Peng secret technique. He was even more restless. However, no one had set foot in the Land of Frost, so no one knew how dangerous it was. He didn't want to lead the way for others, and with his current situation, it was possible that this Land of Frost was specifically targeted at him. Many people had the same worries as him. Their enthusiasm was like a huge fire that was about to be extinguished. The soul-melted sage didn't continue to say more. He announced the 3rd assessment venue. If you can't accept the Lost Land and the Land of Frost, then the 3rd venue should not disappoint you. The 3rd venue is the usual venue for the Outer Yard assessment, the Realm of Storm. The Realm of Storm could be said to be a ruin, but it could also be said to be not. In the soul-melted sage's view, it was not. Therefore, he didn't define the Realm of Storm as a ruin before. There were storm spirits in it, and it was extremely dangerous, but compared to the Lost Land and the Land of Frost, the Realm of Storm was much safer. As the soul-melted sage said, the Realm of Storm was indeed the usual venue for the Outer Yard assessment, but it was indeed the highest level assessment in the Outer Yard. Chapter 1273. After the soul-melted sage's words, there was a great deal of discussion among the crowd. Some said that since no one had set foot in the Land of Frost, then the good fortune inside must have never been touched by anyone. They reckoned that they would be able to make a fortune inside and soar into the sky. There were also some who were worried that they would die an unnatural death the moment they entered the Land of Frost. It could be said that there were all kinds of people in this world. Chu Yang was actually hesitating and making a choice. He immediately ruled out the severed lands. The consequences of losing one's soul were too serious. Or rather, he preferred the complete secret skill of Kuan Peng. If he had to take a risk, he would go to the Land of Frost. Therefore, he wavered between the Land of Frost and the Realm of Storm. Except for the secret skill of Kuan Peng, Chu Yang was not interested in the other fortunes in the Realm of Frost. Therefore, the treasures in the Land of Frost that no one had touched were not very attractive to him. As time went by, the light of the 3 transmission formations became more and more intense, and the space-time fluctuations stabilized. It was completely possible to teleport. After the soul-melted sage discussed with the Dharmasyong sage and the Nirvana sage for a while, he said loudly to the students, the first transmission formation corresponds to the Lost Land. Those who are going to the Lost Land can set off now. Swish. As soon as the soul-melted sage finished speaking, a graceful figure directly entered the transmission formation and went to the Lost Land. Shangguan Lan! Everyone exclaimed. Chu Yang was also slightly surprised. When he looked at Shangguan Lan, he saw that she was bidding farewell to Chu Yang with her eyes. She must have her reasons for going to the Lost Land. While Chu Yang was thinking, Shangguan Lan's voice sounded in his consciousness. Brother Yang, the Lost Land is very strange. Don't go there rashly. He wanted to say something, but Shangguan Lan's figure had disappeared. What is she going to do in the Lost Land? What kind of danger is there? Chu Yang's eyes narrowed slightly. He was a little worried and wanted to go with her, but he was afraid that it would only be a burden to her. Now, Liu Yunpeng and the others were staring at him. Obviously, wherever he went, they would follow. To enter the Stormlands, go to the 2nd teleportation array. Hearing this, nearly a third of the students chose the 2nd teleportation array. The last teleportation array naturally leads to the Land of Frost. If you want to go to the Land of Frost, choose the 3rd teleportation array. A real man is born without 5 cauldrons of food, but when he dies, 5 cauldrons of food will be cooked. I'm definitely going to the Land of Frost. How can there be great fortune without danger? Count me in for the land of frost, haha. If I come out of the land of frost alive, I might be able to soar into the sky. How can I miss such an opportunity? However, in a short period of time, many people chose to head to the land of frost. Very quickly, the crowd began to thin out. Most of the remaining people were still hesitating. Among them, there were even some who had directly given up on participating in this assessment. Eastern wilderness. I want to go to the land of frost. I want to go too. Me too. While Chu Yang was hesitating, Kui Xinhu and the other two spoke up one after another. They were not satisfied with their current strength and hoped to break through and fight side by side with Chu Yang. Birds against birds. This divine bird is even more so. The parrot also chose the land of frost. Previously, Xia Wanjin's palm strike had made it feel very powerless. Time waits for no man. Whether it was the parrot or Kui Xinhu and the other two, they all wanted to improve their strength. Hearing this, Chu Yang did not hesitate and said, "Since you all want to go, then we'll choose the land of frost." Whoosh! Chu Yang took the lead and entered the third teleportation array. Kui Xinhu and the other two followed behind him. As soon as he moved, Xia Wanjin and Liu Yunpeng immediately moved as well. However, they did not step directly into the teleportation array, afraid that Chu Yang would cheat them. Therefore, they wanted to confirm that Chu Yang was going to enter the land of frost before taking action. Chapter 1274. The light was dazzling, and the formation was suddenly activated. The space-time was distorted, and Chu Yang suddenly felt confused. He couldn't distinguish between north, south, east, and west. After walking through the darkness for a while, the light in front of him was restored, and the space behind him was also stabilizing. As soon as his feet touched the ground, he didn't feel cold at all. Instead, he felt very comfortable. As soon as he looked around, a vast and endless world slowly unfolded in front of him. The sky was extremely blue, and there were no clouds for thousands of miles. Looking into the distance, he couldn't see the end of the ancient forest. It was like a green ocean. In the forest, giant trees thousands of feet high could be seen everywhere. Some of them were even taller than the mountains and hid them. In the mountain forest, birds and beasts could be seen everywhere. In the air, there were groups of spirit beasts roaring. When some of them found Chu Yang and the others intruders, they even made sharp hissing sounds, as if they were warning Chu Yang or informing their companions. In the depths of the mountain forest, they could even see huge demonic beasts fighting. The earth was rumbling and shaking, and the roars that shook the sky came from afar. This is the land of frost. Chu Yang was very surprised. Not only him, but the parrot's eyes also popped out. It looked at everything in front of it in disbelief. Kui Xinhu and the others also couldn't believe it. In their imagination, a place like the land of frost should be a world of ice and snow, which was abnormally cold. However, the reality was completely different from what they had imagined. Before them, many students of the Sky Academy had already entered here and were discussing. Those confused noises were all transmitted to Chu Yang's voice one by one. Chu Yang looked around and saw people everywhere. However, as soon as they entered here, many people gathered in twos and threes and looked around vigilantly. They were extremely cautious. Eastern wilderness. Is this the land of frost? Behind Chu Yang, Kui Xinhu and the others were also looking around carefully with surprise. Chu Yang smiled bitterly in his heart. He didn't know, so he could only vaguely say, "It should be." This was indeed a little strange. Was the land of frost like this? If this is the land of frost, then once we enter, we have to be alert. Kui Xinhu's lips were a little dry, and he couldn't help but smack his lips. Ever since he entered the Sky Academy, he had been cultivating hard and had made great progress. He wanted to show his strength, but when he found that there were many people in the outer court of the Sky Academy who were in the soul amalgamation realm, his excitement disappeared. Instead, he became nervous and worried. Right now, he was only at the spirit stage. Yes, we have to keep our spirits up. Otherwise, we won't even know how we died. We from the Eastern Wilderness have always been targeted. Once the exam began, Those bastards from the East Continent had no qualms about killing us. Hao Haodong and Oyu Lajing said in a serious tone. What are you panicking for? Who hasn't been weak before? But if you don't even have the courage, how can you compete with others? Chu Yang naturally understood the mentality of the three people. After all, the barren village was too small, and the outer court students of the Sky Academy came from all over the East Continent. The background and strength they possessed was not something the barren village could compare with. In other words, as people from the Eastern Wilderness, Kui Shinhu and the others had a clear sense of inferiority in their hearts. Especially when their strength increased and they wanted to show their strength, they found that their opponents were far stronger than them. It was inevitable that they would be even more frustrated. Yes. The three people looked at Chu Yang's handsome face in front of them, and their hearts immediately calmed down. They couldn't do it, but the person beside them was amazing. Just now, he had humiliated the Sky Prides from the East Continent and even the Central Continent with just a few words. He even made them beg him. Chapter 1275. After Chu Yang comforted the three of them, he carefully scanned the crowd. He noticed that many people were staring at him, and many spiritual consciousnesses had already locked onto him. Mage. Chu Yang snorted coldly and suddenly unleashed his majesty. Instantly, he destroyed all the spiritual consciousnesses that had locked onto him. Then, he swept his cold gaze over them, causing them to break out in cold sweat. They quickly avoided Chu Yang's gaze. Wild dog, you're quite impressive, aren't you? Liu Yunpeng, Xia Wanjin, and the others also followed in. The person who spoke was Liu Yunpeng, but they did not make a move immediately. After that, Chu Yang understood the reason. Dong. Suddenly, a huge stone tablet fell from the sky and emitted a dazzling light. Soon after, the light condensed on the stone tablet. After which, it transformed into an old light figure that appeared. Students, I'm one of the invigilators of the Sky Academy's Land of Frost assessment. The old figure stroked his beard and looked at the crowd with a smile. Next, I'll tell you the rules of this assessment. Everyone was completely silent as they stared intently at the old light figure. Compared to the previous assessment, the rules of this assessment have changed accordingly. The old figure pointed at the stone tablet and said with a smile, "This is the biggest change. This stone tablet will evaluate and grade you based on your cultivation and talent. There are a total of 15 levels. Generally speaking, an ordinary spirit stage talent will be at the initial level of 1, an ordinary spirit stage talent will be at the initial level of 5, a law phase stage talent will be at the initial level of 10, and the rest of the levels will be based on your talent." During this period of time, many people had already stepped forward to touch the stone tablet. As their palms touched it, rays of light burst out from the stone tablet and landed on their foreheads. When the light gradually dissipated, a shining imprint appeared on the forehead of these students. Among these marks, some were 1, some were 2, some were 5, and some were 10. There were less than 1. Those with numbers above 5 were mostly in the soul amalgamation realm, while those at level 10 were in the transcendence realm. Those who had been evaluated as level 1 were somewhat ashamed and resentful, but most of their eyes were shining with ambition. After all, they had entered the land of frost to fight for a chance. Wang. Just as Chu Yang was observing these people, Xiao Chang'e had unknowingly walked over to conduct the test. As soon as his hand landed on the stone tablet, an extremely dazzling beam of light erupted from the tablet and condensed on his forehead. The imprint appeared clearly at this moment, and the number 15 was extremely dazzling at this moment. Xiao Chang'e's highest level was level 15, as expected of Xiao Chang'e. Not only is his cultivation astonishing, but his talent is also incomparably astonishing. He is actually the highest level in the test this time. He doesn't need to take the test and can directly enter the inner courtyard. Many people cast astonished gazes over. They were extremely envious. Humph. Xiao Chang'e snorted coldly. Looking at the envious gazes of the crowd, he raised his chin slightly and a hint of arrogance flashed across his face. He looked at Chu Yang with a cold smile, as if saying, "Wild dog, do you see this?" Chu Yang couldn't be bothered with him. On the 7-demon domain divine stele, he could suppress everyone in the East Continent. What was Xiao Chang'e to him? After that, The students went in one after another to take the test, to be evaluated and graded. After Xiao Chang'e, Xiong Longxiang, Liu Yunpeng, and Xie Wanjin all obtained the highest grade evaluation, all of them at level 15, which made many students envious and shocked at the same time. Such tests and evaluations once again proved that Xiao Chang'e, Liu Yunpeng, and the rest were all exceptional geniuses. They were definitely monsters. Very quickly, because of Liu Yunpeng and the rest, everyone's gazes fell on Chu Yang. If Liu Yunpeng and the rest were like this, then what about Chu Yang, the wild dog? Chapter 1276. Chu Yang didn't rush forward to evaluate him just because many people were curious to know what his evaluation would be. He waited until the end before bringing Kui Xinhu and the others forward to assess his rank. This immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. They knew that Chu Yang's rank was extremely important to many people. It would determine how they would treat Chu Yang. Kui Xinhu and the others were the first to go forward to be assessed. They were only at spirit stage first level, but they had obtained a rank 4 imprint. This was extremely shocking. After all, an ordinary spirit stage would only obtain a rank 1 imprint. For them to obtain a rank 4 imprint, even if it didn't mean that they had amazing potential, their combat power was infinitely close to the soul fusion stage. The parrot's rank 9 imprint caused everyone to have a whole new level of respect for this lowly bird. They were even more respectful towards Xie Wanjin, who was able to kill the parrot with a single palm strike. Finally, everyone's gaze fell onto Chu Yang. You want to know the rank of my imprint? Grandpa Chu will tease you. Chu Yang smiled. According to Kui Xinhu and the others' rank, he used the demon god walker to seal himself. Then, his hand landed on the stone tablet. When the rank 3 imprint appeared on Chu Yang's forehead, many people were shocked. At the same time, many people's gazes became incomparably presumptuous. Many people had already regarded Chu Yang as their prey. Damn it! Xiao Chang'e cursed out loud. His face was boiling hot. He actually lost to such a person. However, he instantly realized that something was wrong. It was impossible for the wild dog to only be at this rank. He realized that his thoughts were correct. This was because Liu Yunpeng, Xie Wanjin, and the others had already coldly stared at Chu Yang. Chu Yang could control the rank of his imprint. Such a low rank was just an insult to them. When Xiao Chang'e looked at the number 3 again, he suddenly felt an incomparable pain in his heart. The old silhouette was also paying attention to Chu Yang. After seeing this, he could not help but shake his head, inwardly saying, "The eastern wilderness really has produced a peerless monster. He can actually control his own level as he pleases." Then, he said, "Now that the level assessment is over, I will continue to explain the rules. Once the assessment is over, all students below the 10th grade will be eliminated. In other words, they do not have the qualifications to enter the inner courtyard. As for the increase in rank, the method is not difficult. Kill the monster beasts of the frozen lands, increase your own cultivation, or obtain the natural treasures here, and the rank of your imprint will increase." All of a sudden, the old figure of light smiled strangely. Of course, this is definitely not the fastest way to level up. The fastest way is, Chu Yang already understood that it was a robbery. This kind of rule was clearly encouraging students to kill and compete with each other. It was not much different from raising venomous insects. It was cruel and cold-blooded. After a pause, the old figure of light knew that the students had understood his meaning. With a bewitching smile, he said, "Especially if you snatch a high-level imprint. This is even faster. You should be able to break through the 15th grade very quickly and be noticed by the academy." The 15th grade was naturally not the limit. Just like Liu Yunpeng, Xie Wanjin, and the others, it should not be too difficult for them to surpass the 15th grade. And those who could surpass the 15th grade were geniuses among geniuses, monsters among monsters. Naturally, they would be heavily nurtured. The old figure of light finally said, "However, I warn you, it is best not to fight within my sight. Otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences. Alright, now the assessment officially begins." Chapter 1277. TSK. Chu Yang despised the old man. What's the use of not being able to kill in your line of sight? Everyone had left, but Chu Yang didn't have the intention to move at all. He even went up to that old light shadow to tell a story. Old mister, since we have nothing to do, let me tell you a story, Chu Yang said with a smile. Once upon a time, there was a mountain, and there was a temple on the mountain. There were 2 monks in the temple, an old monk and a young monk. At this moment, even though he was just a shadow, his face was already dark. He knew this story too well. Are you trying to tell me that you're Eastern Wilderness 002? The old man said angrily. I'm not interested in the battle between the East Continent and the Eastern Wilderness. You little dog, don't bare your teeth at anyone you catch. I see. Chu Yang rubbed his chin and said to the old man, Old mister, I'm waiting to see if they've finished their discussion. The old man looked at Xia Wanjin and the others and saw 4 pairs of eyes that could devour people. He shook his head and said, Little dog, 1 against 4. You're on your own now. With that, the old man's figure disappeared. Chu Yang looked at Xia Wanjin and the others and said with a smile, Don't waste my time. Which one of you wants to go first? Or 4 at once? Those who hadn't left yet felt that they had made the right bet. They could see a great battle and couldn't help but be excited. Wealth is like walking at night without returning it to your home. Xia Wanjin sneered. Similarly, if I don't kill you in front of others, how can I show off my power? He pointed at Chu Yang. Do I need to be in a hurry to kill a dog like you? Then you can get lost. Chu Yang's expression was carefree. He no longer paid any attention to Xia Wanjin and directly said to Liu Yunpeng and the others, The remaining 3, which one of you still wants to pretend to be virtuous? Xia Wanjin is stupid, but what he said is correct. If I don't defeat you in front of everyone and torture you to death, it would be like not returning the riches and honor to my family. Liu Yunpeng sneered, Wild dog, you should be glad that the crowd dispersed quickly. 7 days later, I will gather everyone here. Do you dare to come and fight me? As he spoke, Liu Yunpeng looked at Xia Wanjin, Xiao Chang'e, and Xiong Longxiang. In these 7 days, the 4 of us will decide who the wild dog belongs to based on the level of the mark on our foreheads. What do you guys think? Let's do that. Sure. I'm fine with it. Xia Wanjin and the other 2 didn't have any objections. Liu Yunpeng directly made the decision. Then it's settled. With a swoosh, he flew away, and his voice rang out, Wild dog, enjoy these 7 days to your heart's content. You don't have many days left. Wild dog, you better not be killed by others. If that's the case, it can only prove that you're not a dog's fart. Xia Wanjin also left. Bastard, if someone wants to kill you, report my name. Xiao Chang'e walked over and said in a sinister voice, Tell him that if he kills you, I'll kill his entire clan. Xiao Chang'e glared at Chu Yang with resentment and also left. The last one, Xiong Longxiang, also looked coldly at Chu Yang. Don't worry about your safety. I'll spread the word that I'll kill whoever dares to touch you. You can rest assured. After speaking, Xiong Longxiang also left, disappearing in an instant. I've really been completely despised. Chu Yang couldn't help but sneer. Xiao Chang'e and Xiong Longxiang, who had lost to him before, actually dared to be so impudent. Relying on your cultivation? I'll tell you that your cultivation is still not enough. Chapter 1278. Let's go and take a look at this strange land of frost. Chu Yang led the parrot and the others and headed towards the depths of the forest. Within the forest, the trees towered into the sky. The dense branches and leaves extended outwards as if they were covering the sky. At this moment, in this boundless forest, the roars of beasts constantly rang out. It was clear that the original tranquility of this world had been completely broken with the intrusion of so many people. Chu Yang and the others quickly encountered a monster. It wasn't just one monster, but 5 or 6 different types of monsters, a hungry tiger with red fur, 3 wolves the size of calves, and a cat. Among the 5 monsters, aside from the cat that was at the 3rd level of the soul fusion realm, the rest were all at the 9th level of the spirit stage. Chu Yang was slightly surprised, but it was only for a moment. Some monsters at the spirit stage were able to transform, let alone those at the spirit stage. They already possessed intelligence. He smiled. You guys are really good. Seeing us like this, you guys actually joined hands to deal with us. Kui Shinhu and the others were eager. You don't have to do anything in the eastern wilderness. The three of us will deal with the 4 spirit stage monsters. The pitting bird will deal with the 3rd level soul fusion realm monster. Chu Yang nodded his head. Everyone needed to temper themselves in order to grow. This was suitable for Kui Shinhu and the others. Waha! The parrot was the first to clamor. Hey, cat, why aren't you kneeling and licking us? Stupid bird, you're courting death. Swoosh! The cat was extremely sharp. It suddenly pounced towards the parrot and created layers of illusions. Waha, stupid cat. Only you know this triangular cat technique. This divine bird knows it too. The parrot suddenly used the same trick as the civet. Suddenly, layers upon layers of phantoms bombarded the civet. The cat was obviously stunned. Stupid bird, how do you know the 1000 illusion technique of our cat clan? Waha, you wouldn't understand even if I told you. The parrot leisurely imitated Chu Yang's tone, causing Chu Yang to roll his eyes. As for the parrot, he wasn't worried at all. It was a one-sided slaughter. The parrot that had the ability to copy wasn't easy to deal with. A 3rd-level soul fusion realm spirit cat wasn't enough. His focus was on Kui Shinhu and the others. Hao Dong was the most shocking. He was fighting 2 wolves by himself, but he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. 2 of his fingers were bent, and golden sword chi flickered on his fingertips. It was extremely sharp, and every move he made people feel a kind of breathtaking feeling. Shocking divine sword technique. Roar. When a wolf saw that Hao Dong had actually abandoned it and went straight for its companion, it immediately roared and opened its mouth to bite Hao Dong. However, it completely bit the air. Its sharp teeth collided with each other, sputtering out sparks and making a metallic sound. It was just an afterimage. Not bad. Chu Yang saw that Hao Dong immediately abandoned the other wolf and appeared on top of the wolf's head like a ghost. He couldn't help but faintly smile. Hao Dong's agility was pretty good. He had completely played around with the 2 wolves in the palm of his hand. Clang! Sparks flew. Hao Dong's finger, which was swallowing sword chi, pierced through the wolf's head. Hot blood immediately spurted out. Roar! The wolf was heavily injured and became even crazier. The other wolf's attack also became even more ferocious. However, no matter how hard the 2 wolves struggled, they couldn't do anything to Hao Dong. It was only a matter of time before they were killed. Therefore, Chu Yang's gaze fell onto Kui Shinhu and Oyu Lajeng. But just as he looked over, he heard a rumbling sound and the ground shook. Kui Shinhu and Oyu Lajeng had already killed the demonic beasts in their hands. Senior Sima Jian is truly not simple. In such a short period of time, he was able to teach them to be so extraordinary. They are only at the 1st level of the spirit realm, but they can easily kill a 9th level spirit realm demonic beast. Chapter 1279. At the same time, after the 2 demonic beasts were killed, the marks on Kui Shinho's and Mo Haodong's foreheads suddenly glowed. Obviously, the marks had grown a little. The marks designed by the Sky Academy are not simple. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows slightly again. He found that the marks seemed to be able to record the scene of the fight just now and determine the points obtained and when to upgrade. He was slightly surprised. Hey! At this moment, Chu Yang suddenly found that someone had broken into the range of his divine mind. He couldn't help but sneer. Someone actually dared to attract his attention. I'd like to see who is so bold as to even have ideas about me. Chu Yang looked at the parrot and said, "Little bastard, hurry up. It's time to start a new business." In a moment, the parrot finished off the civet, and Hao Haodong soon killed the 2 wolves. At this time, Chu Yang looked up at the place where they were hiding and said, "Guys, it's over and you can come out now. You can come out and take advantage of the situation." Whoosh! As soon as Chu Yang finished speaking, 7 or 8 black lights suddenly shot out, aiming at the vital parts of Hao Haodong's and Mo Haodong's bodies. The attack was so sudden and fierce that even Hao Haodong's group couldn't react in time. They could only watch as the black lights rapidly enlarged in their eyes. Buzz! Just as the black light was about to pierce through the three of them and kill them, the space suddenly buzzed and was locked down. The black light was also frozen in midair. Taking a closer look, he found that they were all sinister little snakes formed by spiritual energy. Hao Haodong's and Mo Haodong's faces changed dramatically, and they were even a little scared. If Chu Yang hadn't saved them just now, they would have been seriously injured even if they didn't die. Who? The three of them couldn't help but shout angrily and stare at the hiding place of the sneak attacker. Chu Yang raised his hand to calm Kui Xinhu and the other two, and then said with a smile, "Do you need me to invite you? Haha, this wild dog does indeed have some ability. No wonder you could anger geniuses like Xiao Chang'e to the point of vomiting blood." Of course, there were sounds of laughter coming from the forest. Then, four silhouettes flashed out, and stood on a tree trunk. They looked down at Chu Yang's group of four. Their gazes were very playful. It was as if a cat was looking at a mouse. Kui Xinhu was shocked when he saw the four figures. They were all at the 9th level of the soul amalgamation realm. Oyu Lajing and Hao Haodong's eyes involuntarily narrowed. The strength of these four people was much higher than theirs. If it was just one person, it might be easy to deal with. However, if there were four of them, even Chu Yang would have trouble dealing with them. Chu Yang was incomparably astonishing. Kui Xinhu and the others were well aware that it was easy to cross realms to kill someone. They could even calmly face someone whose cultivation was much higher than theirs. However, they had no choice but to face the fact that Chu Yang's current cultivation was very low. Kui Xinhu and the others weren't sure if Chu Yang could deal with 4 9th-level soul amalgamation realm cultivators at the same time. Eastern Wilderness. Kui Xinhu transmitted to Chu Yang, "These four are all at the peak of the 4th level of the soul amalgamation realm. If you can't handle them, then you should leave first." If Chu Yang wanted to leave, who could stop him? However, if he wanted to bring them along, then it would be troublesome. Chu Yang smiled. If 4 peak soul amalgamation realm cultivators could force him to abandon his companions and flee, then Kui Xinhu was underestimating him. Just 4 small fries. Don't think too much. Chu Yang opened his mouth and said. The parrot's eyes slanted. It was completely convinced by Kui Xinhu and the others. What kind of cultivation level did Chu Hang have? Just 4 9th-level soul amalgamation realm cultivators, and the 3 of them were actually worried and flustered. Chapter 1280. Wild Dog, I'm the one who killed your 3 companions. My name is Ban Sungyang. Remember this. Among the 4 people, a young man covered in purple aura looked at Chu Yang with a smile and said mockingly, "Wild Dog, my name is Shi Yongfeng. Later, I'll be responsible for cutting off the heads of your 3 companions. Wild Dog, my name is Zhang En. Later, I'll be responsible for kicking your companions' heads like a ball." The last person said mockingly, "Since you've already divided the tasks, what should I do? How should I introduce myself?" Suddenly, this person pointed at the parrot with a smile and said to Chu Yang, "Wild Dog, how about I roast a bird for you to eat? Remember, this good person is Tai Yunjing." These 4 people were incomparably mocking. They hadn't done anything yet, but they had already treated themselves as cats and Chu Yang as a mouse. Obviously, they didn't think that Chu Yang had the ability to take advantage of the 4 of them. Chu Yang's eyes couldn't help but narrow. He was thinking whether these 4 people were idiots or idiots. Or perhaps, someone had sent these 4 people to test him. Originally, Chu Yang had defeated Xiong Longxiang and Xiao Chang'e in the forbidden battlefield. His cultivation was limited to the soul amalgamation stage. Perhaps, some people wanted to know the true upper limit of his combat power. I'm very curious. Where did you get the confidence to dare to mock me in front of me? Chu Yang said softly. To be honest, he was really curious. After all, with what he had done, ordinary people wouldn't dare to provoke him. Curious? The person who called himself Ban Sungyang sneered, "Wild Dog, what you said is really interesting. Do you really think that you're on the same level as Xiao Chang'e and the others? Even if you are, and your talent is incomparably amazing, so what if you can kill people who are at a higher realm?" After a pause, he pointed at the other 3 people and said, "You can kill one of us, but can you kill the 4 of us?" Hee hee. Perhaps the wild dog is special. He might be able to do what Xiao Chang'e and the others couldn't do when they were at the spirit stage. That's right. Wild dog is extraordinary. He even dared to humiliate the soul-melting sage and the leaders of our Sky Academy. Isn't it easy for him to kill the four of us? Don't you think so? Haha. The four of them then burst into laughter. Their laughter was filled with ridicule and contempt. Chu Yang's expression remained calm. Can I understand it this way? If Xiao Chang'e or Xia Wanjin were only at the spirit stage, they would definitely not be a match for the four of you. That's why you're so arrogant. Is this your logic? Please answer me. Wild dog, you are really crazy. When Ban Sungyang saw Chu Yang's incomparably calm expression, his gaze couldn't help but turn cold. He immediately waved his hand at the other three and said, Wild dog needs us to teach him how to be a good person. However, please be gentle. After all, this dog is destined to be on the dining table. If we beat him to death, the meat won't be fresh. If we were to be blamed, we wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. The other three people also grinned and revealed their white teeth. They slowly clenched their fists and a tyrannical spiritual energy fluctuation immediately erupted. It seemed that they were about to attack. Chu Yang rubbed his chin. Can you give me some time? I'm really curious about the structure of your brains. At this moment, the parrot spoke. It said to Kui Xinhu and the others, Master, I think you're also curious about the structure of the brains of these three fools. Since we're on the same side, I won't open it and take a look. Kui Xinhu and the others were speechless. They did have some problems. Sometimes, they thought that Chu Yang was omnipotent. Sometimes, they questioned Chu Yang, especially when they were facing a strong enemy. Hehe, wild dog, it seems that you won't cry until you see the coffin. Boom. Chapter 1281. 4 palms that were as large as palms were aimed at Chu Yang, covering the sky and the sun. They slowly enlarged in Chu Yang's eyes and soon completely blocked his vision. At the same time, 4 mighty forces pressed down together, trying to imprison the space where Chu Yang was. Controlling heaven and earth was a means of the soul amalgamation realm. What are they trying to do? I've already proven that such means don't work on me. Why are these 4 fools still using it? Chu Yang guessed inwardly. These 4 fools are isolated from the world, so they don't know. Maybe someone wants to test how deep my understanding of heaven and earth is. Everyone in the Sky Academy should know that he was a level 6 array master. Therefore, the controlling heaven and earth of the soul amalgamation realm was useless to him. However, if the 4 of them worked together, his understanding of heaven and earth was only at the level of a level 6 array master. In particular, the 4 of them worked together with great tacit understanding. Obviously, they had practiced this many times. The effect was far greater than 4 plus 1. Why am I thinking so much? I'll open their brains later and find out the structure of their brains. Chu Yang was too lazy to think about it. He didn't move. The void where he was completely controlled by the 4 of them. Wild dog, how about this dog cage? Ban Sungyang succeeded, but he found it hard to believe because it was too easy. Therefore, he waited for a while and found that Chu Yang didn't seem to have any chance of breaking free. He couldn't help but laugh. Haha, wild dog, I know you want to go out for a walk, but now you'd better stay in the dog cage and watch me kill your companions one by one. Shi Yongfeng, Cheng An, and Tai Yunjing couldn't help but laugh. According to the division of labor, I'll be responsible for cutting off the dog's head. No one can snatch it from me. I'll kick the dog's head like a ball. I'll roast the bird for the wild dog. As the 4 of them laughed wildly, Chu Yang clearly felt that they were relieved. It seemed that Chu Yang was just like this. There was no need to worry. You don't seem to be 4 fools. Chu Yang didn't act up until this moment. He only raised his head and smiled at the 4 of them. Immediately after, a dazzling light exploded from his body. It was as if a sun was rising from his lower abdomen. That was the heavenly abode in Chu Yang's body. It was a heavenly abode cultivated by the martial system of the various divine worlds. If Ban Shungrong and the other threes, controlling the heavens and earth, was the power of cold ice, then what the 4 of them wanted to freeze now was a sundae. How could they freeze Chu Yang? The mighty force that imprisoned the void was completely disintegrated, and the void regained its liveliness. Chu Yang felt all of this, and his understanding of the martial Tao and body cultivation of the two worlds deepened. The heavenly soul realm was the heavenly soul realm of the heavenly soul realm. To the heavenly realm was at the heavenly realm was the realm. The former's power was released, while the latter's power was contained within. Both had their pros and cons, but it seemed that the latter was stronger. Ban Sungyang was like 4 bags stacked on top of each other. He wanted to put Chu Yang into one of the bags, but Chu Yang had a divine weapon in his hand. Even if he was only one person, the divine weapon in his hand could cut through iron as if it was mud. Not to mention a bag, it could even cut through gold and iron. Ha! In an instant, the 4 people's laughter came to an abrupt halt as if they had seen a ghost. Their expressions of great shock mixed with their frozen expressions was truly wonderful. Attack! Either he dies, or I die. Ban Sungyang roared after recovering from his shock. Wild dog, die. Chapter 1282. Rumble. The 4 palms that were originally hovering above Chu Yang's head were now releasing an incomparably vigorous spiritual power like a flood from a dam. The palm power was surging like a surging wave, and was as heavy as a mountain. It fiercely slammed down towards Chu Yang. Although Ban Sungyang and the other 3 spoke disdainfully, they did their best when they attacked. Obviously, they weren't as relaxed as they appeared to be when facing Chu Yang. Or, to be exact, they were scared to death when facing Chu Yang. Therefore, they felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders when they had succeeded just now. After all, everything that Chu Yang did in the Sky Academy was too amazing. It wasn't something that an ordinary person could do. Since the 4 of you aren't fools, then you're just cannon fodder. I'll give you a chance. Kneel down immediately and let me give you a good ideological education. Even a soul amalgamation realm wouldn't be able to withstand the attacks of the 4 people, let alone a spirit realm. They would either be smashed into meat paste or turned into minced meat. However, in the face of such an attack, Chu Yang's handsome face remained calm and had a smile on it. When the attacks of the 3 people were about to land, he still smiled and said, "That's good. Let me try and see how big the difference is between the 2. For people at the peak of the soul amalgamation realm were just right to test the results of the martial arts cultivation in the divine world. They weren't weak, but they weren't too strong either. Swish. Before Chu Yang's voice could reach the ears of the 4 people, his body moved and an afterimage appeared. Ban Sungyang and the other 3 rushed over violently. They used all their strength and bombarded the afterimage. It's comparable to the speed of a 9th stage refinement. The heavenly abode in his body made Chu Yang feel as if he had a source of power. Moreover, this source of power seemed to be endless. With a slight push, his speed was extremely shocking. It felt as if Chu Yang was riding a bicycle before, but he suddenly drove a sports car. If I push the heavenly abode with all my strength, my speed will be even more terrifying than the speed of a 9th stage refinement. He was astonished. The cultivation system of the God realm was indeed unique. At the same time, a thought appeared in his mind. If he was able to transfer the explosive power of the 9th cycle onto the 9 transformations, his speed would become even more frightening. An afterimage? What terrifying speed! How can a spirit stage martial artist possess such ridiculous speed? After their attack missed, Ban Sungyang and the other 3's expressions changed. The fear in their hearts was magnified infinitely. They had heard that the wild dog was incomparably ferocious, and it could really scare people to death. Hey, can the 4 of you react a little faster? I've already been in a daze for a while. What else do you want? Chu Yang also realized that his reaction speed was at least twice as fast as before. His mind was completely shaken. The instant Ban Sungyang and the others' expressions changed, Chu Yang's figure flashed again and appeared behind Shi Yongfeng like a ghost. With a point of his index finger, a sword aura flashed. It was as fast as lightning as it pierced through the void and headed straight for the back of Shi Yongfeng's head. Shi Yongfeng noticed that Chu Yang's finger was extremely sharp. His pupils trembled as he turned around and opened his fist into a palm. Dense spiritual energy shot out, diamond divine fists. He wasn't weak, and he had a lot of combat experience. Although he was caught off guard by Chu Yang, he immediately counterattacked to delay and wait for the other three's assistance. Interesting. It seems that the power of the shocking divine sword art is quite amazing. However, I can't kill him so early. Otherwise, I won't be able to play with him anymore. Chu Yang looked at his index finger that was spitting out sword aura. His eyes were a little dazed and his attention was not on the other four. His words caused Kui Shinhu and the other two's faces to turn red. They were definitely idiots. Worry my ass. Chapter 1283. There's no need to doubt. Your brains are structured like a well. The parrot directly determined the structure of their brains, making the three extremely depressed, but unable to refute. Compared to them, the pitbird clearly understood how terrifying Chu Yang was. Wild Dog, Ban Sungyang and the other three not only had ears, but also eyes. Being looked down upon like this, their anger instantly drowned out their fear. Whoosh! Just as Ban Sungyang's powerful fist was about to collide with Chu Yang, they saw Chu Yang dodge. That astonishing speed once again erupted, and his figure actually disappeared again, easily shaking off the attack. Shi Yongfeng's fist missed. His pupils suddenly shrank, and then he suddenly felt a sense of danger, and hurriedly turned around again. Immediately, he was somewhat astonished to see that Chu Yang had once again appeared behind him, and the index finger that was spitting out sword light had already lightly touched his shoulder. Poochie. The flashing sword light, like a sword of light, pierced through his shoulder like a piece of paper, and blood sputtered out. The eastern wilderness is really powerful. Seeing this, Kui Shinhu and the other two's eyes flashed with admiration. Chu Yang's strength was obviously not something they could imagine. I say, can you be more serious? Chu Yang laughed. It's also fortunate that you met a kind person like me. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a hole in your shoulder, but in your head or throat. Shi Yongfeng's embarrassment was far greater than the pain in his shoulder. In just a short exchange, Shi Yongfeng had been killed by Wild Dog. This made Ban Sungyang and the other two's eyelids twitch violently, and the uneasiness and fear in their hearts grew. The demon in their imagination was more terrifying than a demon, and was simply the ancestor of demons. Everyone gather together. Wild Dog's speed is extremely fast. Don't be separated by him. Ban Sungyang roared sternly. Cheng'en and Tai Yunjing nodded solemnly. Then, they moved and attacked Chu Yang from both sides. Ban Sungyang attacked from the front, directly facing Chu Yang, while the injured Shi Yongfeng attacked from behind. However, Chu Yang was still able to deal with the four of them working together to encircle and suppress him. When he used the 5 elements disordered steps, he became more flexible and more flexible. He was not affected by the cycle of the 5 elements or the restraint of the 5 elements. He was like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins. The martial way of the gods is indeed powerful. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. There was no need to visualize anything during a battle. Without such restrictions and preparation time, one's battle prowess would increase tremendously. The heavenly spirit world's excessive reliance on martial souls was indeed a huge drawback. Thousands of thoughts flashed through Chu Yang's mind. As his feet landed, he shifted left and right. His figure was even more fleeting than a ghost, causing the 4 people's ferocious attacks to completely miss. Golden Crow 9 Swords. Seeing Chu Yang's amazing movements, a cold light flashed through Ban Sungyang's eyes. Immediately, he changed his move. Vigorous spiritual energy swept out. A sun seemed to appear in his palm. The 9 golden crows turned into 9 long swords and pierced towards Chu Yang. Swoosh! Swoosh! The long swords flew out and surrounded Chu Yang. Together with the other 3, they formed a fan shape around Chu Yang. The sharp sword Qi could easily pierce through thick steel plates. Hey, not bad. Chu Yang was slightly surprised. The sword technique that Ban Sungyang used was very impressive. Mountain Seal. Flood Dragon Scissors. Vajra subdues demons. When the other 3 saw that Chu Yang's figure was slowed down by Ban Sungyang, they all attacked together. The surging spiritual energy turned into a mountain and pressed down on Chu Yang. Two flood dragons formed a pair of scissors and cut towards Chu Yang. Chapter 1284. It's time to try something else. A mocking smile appeared on Chu Yang's lips. Then, he unleashed the overturning sky seal, the heaven patching seal, and the slaughter seal. At this moment, he felt as if a celestial had appeared in the heavenly abode within his body. It was turning the world upside down, mending the heavens, and finally slaughtering all living beings in the world. At his lower abdomen, an endless amount of dazzling light burst out, making him look like a celestial being. It was as if he was the first living being created by the heavens and earth. Chu Yang did not need to visualize anymore. It seemed as if he wanted to transform into a celestial being. Overturning sky seal. Rumble. The suppressing mountain was reversed and pushed back. Buzz. 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 The heaven patching seal formed a heavenly barrier and blocked the hole in the heavens, blocking the King Kong fist and flood dragon scissors. When the slaughter seal was unleashed, thousands of swords were unleashed. The sharp aura directly drowned out the 9 golden crow swords. Clang, 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 clang. The 9 golden crow swords shattered and turned into surging energy that spread out in all directions. Arth. 2 blood-curdling screams rang out. Although Ban Sungyang tried his best to resist the slaughter seal, he was instantly drenched in blood and one of his arms was chopped off. Another person faced his own mountain and used his own mountain against his own. However, he suddenly realized that the reversed mountain was actually heavier than his own. With a huge force, he screamed and was sent flying. The wild dog is actually so terrifying. It's actually so unfathomable. Ban Sungyang and the other three's all-out attack was easily disintegrated. 2 of them were even seriously injured. They were so scared that their hearts and livers were about to shatter. Chu Yang was only at the 8th level of the spirit stage, while they were at the peak of the 9th level of the soul fusion realm. However, even with the 4 of them working together, they were still unable to withstand a single blow. The power is still lacking. Logically speaking, 2 of us should have died by now. At this moment, Chu Yang was weighing the pros and cons. He did not visualize a celestial being. Although his attacks were faster and he could unleash 3 moves with just a thought, the power had decreased by at least 30 to 40% or even more. Scatter and escape. Every single one of us escapes. Ban Sungyang was the leader of the 4, and he was scared out of his wits. Especially since Wild Dog was clearly using them as a guinea pig and hadn't used his full strength. If they didn't escape now, none of them would be able to survive. Shoo, shoo. With the sound of the air being torn apart, the 4 of them fled in different directions. They had already fled for some distance, but they could sense that Wild Dog was still in a daze. He was muttering to himself, "This is like sacrificing strength in exchange for speed. I don't know if he can perfectly combine the 2. Great." The 4 of them were overjoyed when they saw that Chu Yang didn't immediately chase after them. This was simply a narrow escape from death. They had picked up their lives for nothing. I say, 4 heroes, did I say you could leave? Chu Yang didn't look at the 4 of them. While thinking, he casually said, "You've done a good deed. Since you're such good people, this humble one should express his gratitude." Ban Sungyang and Shi Yongfeng had already fled far away. When they heard Chu Yang's voice, it was very weak and almost inaudible. Therefore, they were completely relieved and laughed happily. How could they be afraid of Chu Yang? "Ha ha, Wild Dog, come and thank me. Otherwise, I'll continue to do good deeds." Ban Sungyang had just laughed out loud when Shi Yongfeng also provoked him. "Wild Dog, come and chase me if you dare." "Hee, I should use Wild Dog's words. Wild Dog, Grandpa is showing off. Come and bite me if you dare." Chapter 1285. What should I say? How did you recover your mysterious confidence so quickly? Or do you not know what Grandpa's heaven-blessed martial prowess is like? Whoosh. As he spoke, Chu Yang activated his grotto heaven with all his might. Boom. Boom. Instantly, a series of sonic booms rang out. It was as if the void had been pierced through. He was like a falling star. The surface of his body burned with raging flames. The obstructions formed by the air were like walls that were all smashed apart. Boom! Chu Yang was out of control. With a boom, he slowed down halfway and forcibly stopped, directly cutting off Ban Shengrong's path. Hero, I heard that you're going to continue doing good deeds. I'm here to express my gratitude to you on behalf of all living beings. What kind of speed is this? Ban Sungyang was so frightened that he trembled and almost collapsed to the ground. He was in complete despair. Pa! Chu Yang's spirit energy rushed out from his index finger and transformed into an arm. He fiercely grabbed Ban Shengrong and pinched him until his eyes rolled back. But he didn't care. He just carried Ban Shengrong and chased after Shi Yongfeng. You little thing, speak clearly. Are you a female? No, why do you want me to chase after you? Please tell me the reason. Ghost. Shi Yongfeng was almost scared out of his wits, but his voice stopped abruptly. He also received the same treatment as Ban Sungyang. Are you sure you want me to bite you? Woof. 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 The spirit energy turned into a dog the size of a calf and bit Cheng'an crazily, making him scream. Soon, his body was covered in blood and there was not a piece of unharmed flesh on his body. The last one, Tai Yunjing, was even more miserable. It was not one dog that bit him, but 7 or 8. When the spirit energy turned into a dog the size of a calf and brought him back, his arms and legs were in the dog's mouth. In the blink of an eye, the 4 people who were originally fleeing in all directions were all captured by Chu Yang and thrown to the ground like 4 dead dogs. Kui Xinhu and the other 2 broke out in cold sweat. Chu Yang was simply too terrifying. The parrot's eyes also bulged. It seemed that Chu Hang was even more ferocious than before. And, it wasn't just a little bit more ferocious. The 4 heroes have won the Hero Award. I would like to ask you to express your current feelings. When Ban Sungyang saw Chu Yang's smiling face, he couldn't help but shrink back. Horrifying, extremely horrifying. The wild dog was so terrifying that it made people despair and want to commit suicide. In their eyes, the demons were many times more adorable than Chu Yang. With this little bit of ability, you want to show off. The parrot was extremely disdainful. It looked at these people as if they were 4 super idiots. Then it felt that it hadn't expressed itself sufficiently, so it added, especially when you dare to show off in front of my master, Chu Hang. What are you guys thinking? This divine bird is very curious about the structure of your brains. Who knows? Who would dare to come if they knew? This time it's completely over. Falling into the hands of the wild dog is more terrible than falling into the hands of the demons. How is the wild dog going to torture them? Ban Sungyang and the other 3 people's hearts were full of mixed feelings. It was really difficult to express. This time, they were really tired of living and were tired of living. You can provoke anyone, but you can't provoke this demon. This wild dog, even the demons have to call him father when they see him. However, it was too late to say anything now. Therefore, the 4 people all lowered their eyes in despair, waiting for Chu Yang to kill them. I asked you to give your acceptance speech because I'm giving you another chance. Do you understand? Acceptance speech, what a big award. Their lives were almost gone. Chapter 1286. Looks like you guys are really ill-informed. Don't you know who hates those who refuse to cooperate the most? Chu Yang smiled faintly. He raised his hand and heavily slapped Ban Sungyang's chest. The tyrannical force caused his body to bend like a bow. I was still merciful just now. Chu Yang continued, this is the last chance I'm giving you. Confess and I'll be lenient. Resist and I'll be strict. You guys should know what to do next, right? Ban Shengrong opened his eyes and saw the sneer on the corner of Chu Yang's mouth. Ban Shengrong's heart suddenly shrank. He had heard too much about this person. His death was definitely a fortunate thing. The person in front of him was the one who invented the method of stripping naked and hanging up to dry. He did everything to the extreme. Just listening to it would make you feel a chill down your spine. However, what could he say? Because he was afraid that Chu Yang would deal with him and create a new invention, he fearfully handed over his imprint. A ray of light flew out from the imprint between his eyebrows and entered Chu Yang's imprint. The latter's imprint immediately lit up and the number changed from 3 to 6. So it's like this. Then let's take it step by step. Chu Yang called Kui Xinhu and the other 2 over and had them collect the imprint points of the other 3. The 4 of them were all at the peak of the 9th level of the soul amalgamation realm. The lowest imprint point was 5. After absorbing their points, Kui Xinhu and the other 2's points all reached 6. Then, Chu Yang spoke again, "Please continue." In the end, they couldn't escape. Chu Yang didn't care about these imprint points. Ban Sungyang's eyes were incomparably gloomy. He said, "The 4 of us don't actually know each other. We were all forced to come here after being controlled. As for who ordered the 4 of us to test you, we have no way of knowing." Chu Yang smiled again. "It's over just like that. Do you think I'm satisfied? I really don't know anything else." Ban Sungyang's pupils trembled. He was terrified to the extreme because Chu Yang could be ruthless in the next moment. "Release your consciousness." The cold voice stunned Ban Sungyang. This was not the result he had expected. Then, he did as he was told. Chu Yang's consciousness entered his spiritual world and carefully checked his memories. Just as he said, everything was true and there was not a single lie. He also checked the memories of Shi Yongfeng and the other 2, and the result was the same. The 4 of them were all defeated and then threatened. In the end, the 4 of them were forced to gather together and practice together. Chu Yang couldn't help but frown. All of this happened before the assessment. In other words, before the outer court exam began, someone had already made preparations to deal with him. But who exactly was it? Xia Wanjin? Liu Yunpeng? Xiao Chang'e? He went through each person's name in his mind, but there were too many people. It could be the whole Sky Academy. He couldn't find any clues. He couldn't help but say coldly in his heart, "Which bastard is so concerned about me? You'd better not let me know." The last problem was how to deal with Ban Sungyang and the other 3. Chu Yang thought for a while, "The purpose of the people in the dark should be to investigate my background. As for the life and death of Ban Sungyang and the other 3, they don't care at all. They even want me to kill all 4 of them to accumulate hatred. The 4 of you, I will show you a path that will definitely allow you to survive." Survive? Ban Sungyang and the other 3 had never thought that they could survive in Chu Yang's hands. "In the future, follow me." After saying that, Chu Yang laughed again. "Of course, you can refuse, and I will never force you to stay. But if you are killed, don't say that we didn't warn you." Chapter 1287. After Ban Sungyang and the others recovered from their astonishment, they kept looking at each other. After a while, Ban Sungyang was the first to speak. "All right, I'll follow you." Chu Yang didn't know what Ban Sungyang was thinking, but he smiled. "You won't be disappointed." Ban Sungyang didn't know if he would be disappointed by such a confident smile in the future, but for now, he actually believed in such a sentence. Not long ago, he was still calling Chu Yang a wild dog. After Ban Sungyang, perhaps Shi Yongfeng and the others were afraid that Chu Yang would kill them if they didn't agree, so in the end, they all compromised. Waha! The parrot immediately laughed. "I'm going to build a team. Trash, get ready to tremble." Kui Xinhu and the others were also very excited. "Eastern Wilderness. Since you want to build a team, you should at least have a name, right?" Chu Yang pondered for a moment. Building a team wasn't his original intention, but what he did just now was no different from this, so he simply said in his heart, "Then let's build a team. I think I'll like it if there's a bunch of little brothers behind me waving flags and cheering." He immediately said, "Let's call it the East Arrival Pavilion." East Arrival Pavilion. The parrot rolled its eyes, and once again looked down on Chu Yang's ability to come up with a name. It didn't know that when the East Arrival Pavilion was in the Eastern Wilderness, Chu Yang had already built it in the 5 Elements sect. Now, Chu Yang was very straightforward, and directly used it. Then, what made the parrot even more depressed was that Kui Xinhu and the others were very excited when they heard the name. East Arrival, purple chi from the east. The meaning is very good. Not only that, East Arrival also explains where we came from. East Arrival, East Continent. Who doesn't know that I'm from the Eastern Wilderness? I think it's good too. Ban Sungyang didn't have the right to speak, and now they couldn't speak either. Chu Yang's attention wasn't on this. He suddenly smiled towards a few hidden corners in the forest. Everyone, if anyone wishes to join this humble one's East Arrival Pavilion, this humble one welcomes you with open arms. However, I hope that everyone will be prepared before coming here. I'm not always in such a good mood. There was no sound in the forest, but Chu Yang clearly knew that there were many people secretly watching him. As for the purpose of these people, most of them were probably probing his strength. After this incident, he believed that many people would be much more careful when taking action again. Then, all of you can scram now. Otherwise, I'll invite you over for tea. Shua shua shua. As soon as Chu Yang's words fell, the people hiding in the dark of the forest immediately fled like birds startled by the twang of a bow. They didn't dare to stay a moment longer. That feeling of being stared at like prey made them very terrified. Chu Yang, this wild dog, was too frightening. It made their hearts palpitate. Some of them, after distancing themselves from Chu Yang, looked over and saw that the wild dog was actually standing there motionless. Their faces couldn't help but turn gloomy. The wild dog is really arrogant. He actually dares to do this. Clearly, he's not afraid that someone will find trouble with him again. Using his own words, he's really confident in himself. Two people looked at Chu Yang from afar and sneered. If it weren't for Xia Wanjin and the others insisting on personally killing this wild dog, I'm afraid that wild dog would have already died on the spot. However, this wild dog's strength is truly frightening. 4 9th-layer soul fusion realm cultivators working together were actually so weak in his hands. The two of them discussed in a low voice. Even though they were far away, they were still afraid that Chu Yang would notice. This isn't something we should consider. We can just send the news back. It's a pity that we still haven't completely figured out this wild dog's background. Otherwise, it would definitely be a great achievement. Soon, don't worry. Chapter 1288. In the Eastern Wilderness, you won't have any trouble after this, right? After waiting for a while, Kui Xinhu and the others found that the people who had been spying on them had all left. Some of them looked very funny when they ran away, so they couldn't help laughing. Chu Yang looked into the distance. Then, he shook his head and said, "No, they won't give up until they have thoroughly investigated my background. Therefore, they will use more despicable means in the future, and the people they send to test my strength will be stronger." Hao Haodong couldn't help but smile bitterly. They, the people from the Eastern Wilderness, were really targeted. Since they entered the Sky Academy, this had never stopped. You don't have to worry about that. Chu Yang's black eyes were slightly cold. The more they attack, the more exposed they will be. At that time, it will be time for me to settle the score with them. In this so-called land of frost, where there was no trace of frost, Chu Yang's main enemies were Xia Wanjin and the others. With their arrogance, it was difficult for them to do such a thing, but it was hard to say. If it weren't for them, there would be a poisonous snake lurking around him. It would be better to kill such a snake as early as possible. After all, it was easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to guard against a stab in the dark. Chu Yang pursed his lips. He didn't want to be defeated by these rats in the dark. It seems that I have to break through to the 7th level array master first. Then, I will have a better chance to deal with Xia Wanjin and the others, as well as the thieves in the dark. Chu Yang had many means now, but not many of them could resist the attacks of the Dharma characteristic realm. In the outer yard of the Sky Academy, the highest realm was the Dharma characteristic realm. Therefore, if he became a 7th level array master, he shouldn't be afraid of anyone in the outer yard assessment. As for the limitless body, his self-created technique, as well as the martial arts system of the two worlds, he still needed time to carefully carve and straighten them out bit by bit. Only when he thoroughly understood them would he be able to unleash their greatest power. Right now, he was still lacking a lot. Ban Sungyang and the other three needed a long time to heal their injuries because Chu Yang had injured them too severely. Tai Yunjing, who had his 4 limbs bitten off, was in the most miserable state. Although his 4 limbs were bitten off, they were still intact and could be reattached. If they were not, then it would be troublesome. Night was about to fall. The incomparably dark night was like ink, enveloping the entire land of frost. In the night sky, the stars were incomparably lonely, with only a few twinkling from time to time. In the forest at night, all kinds of roars resounded from time to time. Some were angry, some were fearful. As time went by, the outer yard students of the Sky Academy invaded deeper into the land. The demonic beasts, who were the native inhabitants, obviously did not allow other masters to live on the land. Therefore, the battle continued. In a secluded mountain forest, a bonfire was burning. Chu Yang was sitting cross-legged under an ancient tree, preparing to break through to the 7th grade array master. A 7th level array master was comparable to a warrior in the Dharma characteristic realm by relying on the formation. It was extremely difficult to break the heavenly barrier formed by the formation. Previously, when he broke through to the 6th grade array, he used the formation as his body to reveal the heavenly barrier and break it with the help of external forces. This time, there was no such condition. However, if Chu Yang wanted to break through, he naturally had something to rely on. What he relied on was the accumulation of power from the world of gods. Chapter 1289. The Tao-splitting spirit split was when the divine soul was operated to the extreme and divided into three, transforming into three different selves. In the demon Tao, this was also called the primordial spirits of three separations. In the immortal world, it was called the three pure ones. If one could reach such a realm, they would be truly powerful and extremely difficult to kill. Once this was cultivated, one's cultivation would be 3 times stronger. It was equivalent to having 3 selves. Moreover, the 3 selves could each do their own things, reincarnate, or reincarnate. When combined, it wouldn't be as simple as 3 selves overlapping. This was just like Chu Yang's divine twins. Of course, this was a great fortune. The transformation of his soul was definitely not that simple. After all, when the soul was divided into 2, the power of the soul would definitely weaken. However, Chu Yang's power of the soul didn't weaken. Instead, it strengthened. The part of his divine soul that cultivated the martial arts system of the heavenly spirit world didn't change. However, the part of his divine soul that cultivated the martial arts system of the God's world was not only born, but it was completely equal to the former. Unknowingly, he seemed to have gained an additional 1, 3, and 7 souls. It was as if he had gained an extra soul. Chu Yang wasn't clear about the specifics yet. But he was certain that all of this wasn't due to him. Instead, it was due to the influence of the rules of the great Tao in the world of gods. He had used his destiny twin martial spirits to steal a great fortune. It was as if Chu Yang was born in the gods' world. Now, it was as if he was a fusion of himself from 2 worlds. To put it simply, if his current body was the limitless body, then his soul would become the limitless soul. The limitless soul gave birth to 2 soul systems to correspond to the laws of the 2 worlds. With 2 soul systems, 1 soul system wasn't enough to break through the heavenly barrier and become a 7th grade array master. However, if the 2 soul systems worked together, it would be easy. This was Chu Yang's plan. As the plan went on, Chu Yang's lower abdomen instantly lit up. In the dark night, the light emitted from his body was incomparably dazzling. Then, the light became brighter and brighter, making his whole body transparent. His lower abdomen looked like a big sun hanging high in the sky. This was Chu Yang's grotto heaven. At this moment, within the grotto heaven, a sea of spiritual chi was surging, condensing into the sun, moon, and stars, evolving into a day and night. Soon enough, the stars in the heavenly abode transformed on their own. It was as though the heavenly abode had transformed into a real world. The flow of time became regular. The sun rose and the moon set. During this process, the sun rose from the east, the moon shone over the sea, the stars in the sky, the sea rose, and various other scenes appeared one after another. Right now, Chu Yang was only at the 8th level of the spirit stage. His spirit stage had yet to reach perfection. Therefore, the heavenly abode that corresponded to the other system had yet to reach perfection. If the heavenly grotto heaven was perfected, one would be able to sense the stars, sun, and moon in the outside world and move in sync with them. The heavenly grotto heaven would shine brilliantly, and all phenomena would appear. When the manifestation of the myriad manifestations finally converged into a single point, the primordial spirit would be formed. This was the primordial spirit realm of the gods. What Chu Yang needed to do now was to temporarily reveal his primordial spirit, and then use them to break through the barrier of heaven. Following the changes in his heavenly abode, Kui Shinhu and the others, as well as Ban Sungyang, could clearly feel a strange fluctuation. This fluctuation was very novel to them, as if they were seeing a new world. Therefore, they were incomparably shocked. At the same time, they also became cautious. They were afraid that their movements would affect Chu Yang's cultivation. In just a short moment, the few people who were holding their breaths immediately saw the sun on Chu Yang's lower abdomen. Flowers, birds, fish, insects, beasts, the sun, the moon, and the stars all appeared. It was as if the Creator was creating everything. Chapter 1290. At this time, Kui Shinhu, Ban Shungrong, and the others saw that there seemed to be 7 big suns appearing in Chu Yang's body. They connected into a line. Finally, the light beam was projected between his eyebrows, forming a human figure. Spirit. Chu Yang's spirit. The 7 suns were like 7 stars in a line, forming a spirit. Whether it was Kui Shinhu or Ban Sungyang, they were all very clear about it. However, what was the thing in Chu Yang's lower abdomen? Buzz. Buzz. Suddenly, Chu Yang's body shook violently. Then, they saw the spirit between Chu Yang's eyebrows and the human figure in his lower abdomen punch at a certain spot at the same time. Rumble. The sound of a mountain collapsing instantly filled their ears, causing their minds to shake violently. By the time they regained their senses, they discovered that Chu Yang's spirit and the human-shaped shadow in his lower abdomen had already disappeared. Moreover, they also discovered that a strange change had occurred in the surrounding void. It seemed that there were faintly discernible thin lines floating in the void, touching their divine senses. What happened? Every one of them was extremely surprised. However, when those thin lines touched their divine senses, they were inexplicably touched, and a mysterious feeling surged in their hearts. Are you guys lacking something? Why are you standing there in a daze? Hurry up and comprehend it. Do you think there are many opportunities like this? The parrot, who had been quietly comprehending, was awakened by the great change. When it saw Kui Shinhu and the others in a daze, it couldn't help but say this. Then, it closed its eyes and no longer spoke. At that moment, Kui Shinhu and the others were shocked. They immediately sat down cross-legged and carefully comprehended it. Chu Yang's area immediately became extremely quiet. There was no more sound. The roars of beasts in the distance made the area seem even quieter. At that moment, Chu Yang had broken through the barrier of the sky. However, the difference was that this time, when he broke through to the array master level, what he felt was no longer the sky and the earth. Instead, he saw thin lines. Besides the thin lines, there was nothing else. He almost couldn't feel his own existence, as if he had disappeared. Is this a rule thread that only those in the transcendence realm can sense? In the Dharma characteristic realm, spirit chi would transform into dharmic powers. Transcendence energy possessed great mysteries. It wasn't simply condensing spirit chi to the limit and transforming it into transcendence energy when its quality reached the limit. Instead, it was a complete evolution and transformation, just like how demonic beasts gained intelligence and transformed into humans. This involved the rules of the Great Tao. If one could not touch the natural order, they would never be able to transform their spirit chi into dharmic powers and would forever be stuck in the transcendence realm. This was good. For example, Chu Yang. Because of his powerful martial soul, the quality of Chu Yang's spiritual chi was extremely amazing. It was not inferior to the spiritual chi of a soul amalgamation realm martial artist. Therefore, when he had just entered the Sky Academy, he had been able to kill the Pill Fire Sage and the others when Sima Jian had limited their realms. In the Seven Wheels demonic realm, he had obtained the spirit origin of 2 supreme characters. His 7 souls had become even stronger, and the quality of his spirit chi had become even higher. Later, he had introduced the power of the world of the gods into his body. During the collision, His spirit chi had been refined again. Now, the quality of his spirit chi was unknown, but it still could not be transformed into dharmic powers. With the help of the breakthrough array, I can sense the natural order of the world. Maybe I can directly transform my spirit chi into dharmic powers. Rumble. Chu Yang and the others were cultivating with all their might. Suddenly, the earth shook violently. Great vibrations and fluctuations came from right in front of them. At the same time, the roars of demonic beasts came from afar. It's demonic beasts. The parrot, Kui Shinhu, and the others opened their eyes in an instant and immediately cursed, "Damn it." Soon after, their eyes widened as they saw a pack of fiery red wolves charging towards them. From afar, the pack of wolves looked like moving flames. Their bodies were burning with flames, and they were extremely powerful. There were many of them. A pack of fiery wolves. There are so many of them, and the ones with the lowest cultivation level seem to be at the spirit realm. Some of them are even at the transcendence realm. Chapter 1291. After the fiery wolves approached, they slowly closed in. Pairs of burning eyes stared at Kui Shinhu and the others as if they were sheep. They let out deep roars, but did not immediately attack. Kui Shinhu and Ou Lajing's expressions were extremely solemn. They could only rely on Chu Yang to deal with such a large group of wolves. Ban Sungyang, Tai Yunjing, and the others were pale. They had just submitted to Chu Yang, and they might lose their lives here. Only the parrot's eyes flickered. It was thinking about how to deal with the wolf pack. Chu Hang clearly had a great comprehension, and must not be disturbed. At this time, Chu Yang had already noticed the arrival of the wolf pack. The huge movement just now had a great impact on him. Those incomparably clear thin lines were no longer so clear. He was not angry, because he was not allowed to be angry. He also did not move, because he was not allowed to move. After breaking through to the 7th grade array master, perceiving the thin lines of the laws was like a sudden burst of inspiration. Once missed, there was no way to get it back. Chu Yang tried his best to calm himself down and comprehend with all his might. As long as he could hold on, he would hold on, because this was very important to him. Help! Suddenly, an extremely sharp scream exploded in the air, bursting out in front of Kui Shinhu and the others. It formed a visible sharp wave, directly attacking Chu Yang. A fierce wind blew, whistling incessantly. Boom! The sound wave was caught off guard, and suddenly poured into Chu Yang's ears. He was suddenly shocked, and his mind exploded. The thin lines in his perception completely disappeared. When he tried to sense them again, there was no trace of them at all. Damn it! Buzz! Chu Yang suddenly opened his eyes, and a great amount of anger was vented. The light in his eyes was like a sharp blade. A pressure rushed out, and circles of ripples appeared in the air. In an instant, the fiery wolves instinctively felt fear, and unconsciously retreated. Ban Sungyang, who was beside Chu Yang, couldn't help but tremble under such pressure, as if he was a subject facing an enraged monarch. Chu Yang opened his eyes and saw the owner of the scream. It was a little girl dressed in white. She was about 13 or 14 years old. She had a head of golden hair, and her small face was very delicate. She was cute and moving. Her big eyes were pure like a lake. At this time, they were rippling with a heart-wrenching panic. This was an extremely cute and beautiful little girl. Most people who saw her would not be able to hate her. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes. This little girl was not simple. She was actually able to appear in front of them without a sound. She was probably invisible just now, so he did not show any signs of wanting to attack immediately. The little girl's face was filled with surprise as she ran towards Chu Yang and the others. She was like a fairy, like a little beast in the mountains. However, her surprise quickly dissipated bit by bit because the person in front of her didn't seem to have any intention of saving her at all. Especially the person in the center. His sharp gaze was like a divine spear that shot towards her, as if he wanted to nail her to the ground. Bad guy. The little girl was immediately angry. Then, tears gathered in her big eyes, and soon, she was about to cry. However, she bit her lips tightly and stubbornly refused to let her tears fall. She looked extremely wronged and helpless, which made people feel sorry for her. Her current appearance was completely innocent. It was as if she didn't understand why these people in front of her were so cold, and actually didn't want to save her. Chapter 1292. Her angry eyes made Kui Shinhu laugh even though he was about to kill someone. He no longer had any ill feelings towards her and explained in his heart, she didn't know that Chu Yang was in a critical situation just now. She was only running for her life and rushed towards them in a hurry. If she knew, she definitely wouldn't have come. Chu Yang looked at the little girl's pitiful and miserable appearance and his face couldn't help but twitch. Let alone a woman, he realized that Kui Shinhu and the others' sympathy had already overflowed without hesitation. They were just short of hugging her in their arms and comforting her. Eastern wilderness, let's save her. Oyu Lajing really couldn't bear it, so Chu Yang didn't say anything until now. He couldn't help but speak up. I'll kill whoever goes over. Chu Yang gritted his teeth as he spoke. Suddenly, in his consciousness, he sensed strands of law jumping out one after another. They were like a woman's hair falling on his face, tickling his senses and making him feel a little itchy. Strands of law. Although Chu Yang was confused and didn't know the situation, he couldn't help but feel happy. However, he quickly realized that there was something different. These weren't the original strands of law. If they were both women, then the woman just now was as cold as ice, and the woman now was extremely charming. The laws of the God's world, the laws of the God's world's formation masters. The God's world also had formation masters, but they weren't called formation masters. They were called domain masters. The two were very similar, but also very different. Domain masters learned complex inscriptions, observed the terrain, learned, and became proficient in arrays. In the beginning, they needed magnetic stones to inscribe inscriptions on. Only then could they set up the array. Later on, when their domain cultivation became more profound, they could directly condense spirit seals. This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was why the God's world's formation rules appeared. However, in just an instant, Chu Yang understood. Because of his limitless body and limitless soul, the two worlds were one day and one was night to him. When the day passed, the night would appear. Because of that, the heavenly soul world's array formation rules disappeared while the myriad God world's array formation rules were revealed. In this way, even if he was disturbed again and again, he would not have to worry, because the two would appear alternately until he completely comprehended them. In fact, he might even need someone to disturb him now so that he could switch between the two so that he could remember and comprehend the laws of both. Haha. Chu Yang suddenly laughed out loud. And this was only for a short period of time. Therefore, the drastic change in his mood made everyone at the side feel astonished. They were baffled. The little girl's big eyes also faintly flashed with a trace of doubt, but it disappeared in a flash. Then, she screamed as if she had met a big bad wolf. Ah! The little girl ran away in a panic. It seemed that the pack of wolves behind her had started to chase after her again. Her footsteps became disorderly, making her look even more pitiful. Especially when they suddenly fell and scrambled up in a panic, looking at the ferocious fiery wolves in front of them with fear. It was simply heart-wrenching. Sigh. Hao Haodong also couldn't bear to see her like this. He also said, Eastern wilderness, please save her. Although the Eastern continent discriminates against us, she is still a little girl in the end. We can't just stand by and watch her die. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Hao Haodong actually thought that he would refuse to save her because of this reason. He was really convinced. If he was like Hao Haodong, he would definitely be played to death. Girls are very weak, very pitiful, and need to be cared for and sympathized with. Your eyes are blind, your heart is muddled. You really haven't seen how a strong woman can trample a man under her feet. Chapter 1293. Yes, Master. Flap flap flap. The distance between them was very close. As soon as the parrot flew over, it shot out 9 colored threads with its claws. It looked like it was going to deal with the wolves, but it suddenly turned and trapped the little girl tightly. Then, it carried her back. Waha, Master has succeeded. The parrot laughed proudly. When it comes to treachery, This divine bird is second in the world, if not the first. This little girl has fallen into our hands, dealing with the wolves will be much easier. Kui Shinhu and Ban Sung-young were stunned. The wolves were attracted by this cute little girl. Was that possible? They couldn't believe it, and looked at Chu Yang with suspicion. Scoundrel, you are a big scoundrel, worse than a wolf. The little girl's big eyes were full of tears. Coupled with her childish words, Kui Shinhu and the others felt even more distressed, and became even more suspicious of Chu Yang. Chu Yang's face twitched again, and then he said, "You can really act." Then he said to Kui Shinhu and the others, "Have you read books? You know that there are 3 kinds of people in the world. When you see them, you must pay attention to them: old people with crutches, beautiful women, and the little girl in front of you." Tap. Chu Yang flicked the little girl's forehead, and the little girl cried loudly, looking even more pitiful. Kui Shinhu and the others couldn't agree with Chu Yang's logic. Eastern wilderness, are you mistaken? How could such a little girl have ulterior motives to interrupt your enlightenment? Hey! Chu Yang suddenly looked at Kui Shinhu and the others and asked, "Where is this place?" They were stunned, and then they broke out in cold sweat. This was the land of frost. If she was just an ordinary little girl, how could she dare to enter such a dangerous place alone? Waha! The parrot laughed strangely. "I said that your brains are made of a well, and I really didn't wrong you. Learn a little, and don't let others sell you off in the future." The few of them were speechless. Chu Yang began to interrogate them while comprehending the threads. He didn't want to do this, but if he let Kui Shinhu and the others interrogate this little girl, they would probably be blind. Name? Bad guy, you're a big bad guy. The little girl was still delicate and pitiful. She widened her eyes and shed tears. She didn't forget to put on an angry look, which added to her cuteness. Do you know of a creature called a little loli? Chu Yang lifted the little girl in front of him and said, "The general gender of lolis is female. Most of them don't exceed 16 years old, but their mental age can be slightly more mature. According to the definition level, the age requirement can fluctuate. Personality can be unlimited. Lolis can have many different personalities, such as tsundere, shy, naive, gentle, fiery, spoiled, black-bellied, and so on." Ta. The little girl's forehead was hit by Chu Yang again. Your type belongs to the black-bellied, extremely black-bellied. As for lolis, most of them are petite. Their physical characteristics are generally slightly developed, half of them are slightly developed, 30% are without breasts, and 20% are with breasts. Their eyes are watery, and when there are tears, it will make people concerned. Their voices are sweet and tender. Hearing their voices, 9 out of 10 men will have their hearts beat faster. Chu Yang's summary was simply incisive. Kui Shinhu and the others listened and felt that the little girl in front of them completely matched the characteristics, but they were still incomparably speechless. Was this real or fake? Chapter 1294. As for the little girl, she was no longer crying. Her pure eyes were wide open, as if she was looking at something strange. She looked at Chu Yang from head to toe, as if she was fighting back against being defined as a lowly. She also wanted to define something for Chu Yang. Chu Yang smirked. He listed the little lolis in his memory one by one. Lolis clothing. Most of them are sailor clothes, student clothes, and casual clothes. A few of them are in uniform, and there are no restrictions on their race. Kui Shinhu and the others couldn't understand at all. They didn't know if their experience was too shallow or Chu Yang was too knowledgeable. Anyway, they were already a little confused. They usually have a killing move. When they are caught or held, they will not be able to breathe. They usually combine it with their voice to form a continuous skill. It is extremely dangerous, extremely dangerous. Chu Yang finally looked at the little girl and summarized her. The little lowly we caught is at the stage of becoming a lowly. There is still a long way to go before she becomes a supreme lowly. She still needs to work harder. After the parrot heard this, its eyes widened. "Master, is there really such a dangerous creature?" Chu Yang said so accurately and in so much detail that it believed him. It completely regarded the lowly as a new race. Haha. Chu Yang almost laughed out loud. "Little bitch, there is, of course there is. And there are many of them. If you are not careful, you will encounter them. You have to be careful. The parrot became more serious. Master, you said that their killing moves are extremely dangerous. Then how terrifying are they? This divine bird doesn't understand. A killing move that can only be released when they are caught or held is really strange. In the end, it added, they will not be able to breathe, and they usually combine it with their voice to form a continuous skill. What kind of magical power is this? The parrot thought for a while. Its head hurt a little. It poked its wings and cried out, "Hey, little lowly, why don't you show me your killing move quickly?" Under the parrot's lead, Kui Shinhu, Ban Sungyang and the others also faintly believed that there was a lowly race. They all waited to see the little lowly's killing move. Ha ha. When Chu Yang heard the parrot's words, and the way Kui Shinhu and the others were acting, he couldn't help but laugh maniacally. It's because I didn't transform into the supreme lowly that you saw through me. The little girl didn't pretend to be pitiful at this time. She widened her eyes and asked seriously. Ha ha. Chu Yang couldn't say a word. He laughed until tears came out of his eyes. However, the little girl's question made Kui Shinhu and the others completely believe Chu Yang's nonsense, and the little bit of doubt in their hearts disappeared. When the parrot saw Chu Yang acting like a bird, it immediately realized that it had been a fool. It cursed in its heart, "Damn that Chu Hang." It definitely couldn't leave behind such a weakness and be laughed at by Chu Yang. At once, it secretly transmitted a message to Chu Yang. "Waha, Master, how was this divine bird's cooperation? I completely tricked the little lowly. Haha." The parrot's behavior made Chu Yang laugh even more crazily. This shameless bird still wanted to remedy the situation. "Wild dog, what are you laughing at? Also, how to become the supreme lowly? What is the lowly's killing move, and how to practice it?" After Chu Yang heard this, he laughed so hard that he almost rolled on the ground. This little lowly actually believed in the so-called killing move, and still wanted to become the supreme lowly. Chapter 1295. Wild dog, what are you laughing at? If you laugh again, I'll put you in the dog cage. The little lowly's eyes widened in anger, revealing her ferocious appearance. Soon after, she realized that something was wrong. She blinked her big eyes and muttered, "There really is such a special existence like the lowly." Ah, she immediately screamed miserably. While she was in a daze, Chu Yang ruthlessly hit her on the forehead, and a bruise immediately appeared on her forehead. "Little lowly, watch your words. Otherwise, I'll put you in the dog cage." Chu Yang sneered, but the little lowly was not afraid. She angrily said, "Wild dog, I'll fight it out with you." Bang, bang, bang. The restraints on the little lowly's body were all broken. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws as she pounced over. However, she was caught by Chu Yang and ruthlessly beaten. She was not convinced. Chu Yang wasn't afraid of such a naughty child. He grabbed her buttocks and fiercely slapped her. It was as if she was being punished with a rod. The little girl was crying out incessantly. Her buttocks were almost rotten. "Little flame, bite this wild dog to death," the little lowly shouted. She then added, "No, bite him until he's half dead. After he recovers in the dog cage, I'll beat him up every day. I'll definitely beat his butt until it's broken. Which family's stupid child is this? So stupid." The parrot looked down on her for daring to threaten Chu Hang. "Little flame, bite this ugly bird until it becomes a stupid bird." The parrot scolded the little lowly, "You're the stupid one. Your whole family are stupid birds." As for the flaming wolves, they growled and made threatening sounds. Biting Chu Yang until he was half dead was easy. However, biting a parrot until it became a stupid bird was difficult for them. However, they did not need Chu Yang to worry about them. The little lowly was directly suppressed by Chu Yang. "Little lowly, have you heard of stripping naked and hanging up to dry? Who was the first to do that?" With just this sentence, the little lowly's body stiffened. All her arrogance was extinguished. However, she became fierce again in the end. She widened her eyes and said, "Wild dog, how dare you? I will definitely make Xiao Hua and the others bite you to death." Humph. Chu Yang suddenly snorted coldly, and the smile on his face completely disappeared. He said coldly, "You'd better tell me clearly. Who asked you to interrupt my comprehension of the Tao? Otherwise, I don't mind killing all of your so-called little flames first, then I'll deal with you bit by bit. Wild dog, give it a try if you have the guts." The little girl was still very arrogant, but when Chu Yang grabbed her hair and was about to pull it out, she immediately screamed, "Wild dog, I surrender." Woo woo woo. When Chu Yang stopped, the little lowly burst into tears and snot. She then shouted at Chu Yang, "Wild dog, from today onwards, don't even think about hitting on my sister. Don't even think about becoming my brother-in-law." Brother-in-law? Chu Yang was shocked. His eyes widened, and he thought to himself, is this little girl Shangguanlan's younger sister, his sister-in-law? Damn, I have to beat my sister-in-law, or she will be so arrogant in the future. Humph. The little lowly said proudly, "Wild dog, are you afraid? My sister is the first beauty of the Sky Academy. From today onwards, you can forget about it." The first beauty of the Sky Academy? That's really possible. Chu Yang gritted his teeth. He was so angry that his teeth itched. Damn sister-in-law. How dare she disturb my enlightenment? If he had not drawn the power of the divine world into his body and obtained great fortune, he would have been killed by his sister-in-law today. Chapter 1296. What second beauty? Shangguanlan is the second beauty. How can she compare to my sister? She wears a veil all day long, so she might be an ugly freak. That's why she doesn't dare to show her face. The little lowly shrieked. Chu Yang was stunned again. Ji Yinyin. So she wasn't his sister-in-law. As for Chu Yang, he had no impression of her at all. Smack smack smack. Chu Yang gave Ji Yinyin another round of spanking. She actually dared to pretend to be his sister-in-law. She was simply committing a heinous crime. Ji Yinyin shrieked and threatened, "Wild dog, do you really not want to marry my sister? If you dare to hit me again, not only will you not be able to marry my sister, but my sister will also teach you a lesson." Ji Yinyin, let me ask you very seriously. Did your sister send you to disturb my enlightenment? Smack smack smack. As soon as Chu Yang finished speaking, he gave her another round of spanking. The little lowly felt Chu Yang's coldness and completely surrendered this time. However, before she could calm down for a while, she looked at Chu Yang in disbelief and said, "Huang. Chu Yang, you really don't want to marry my sister?" Her sister, Ji Yinmeng, had always been able to make any man fall to the ground when she threw them out. Everyone who knew that she was Ji Yinmeng's younger sister would treat her like a little ancestor. Only this wild dog in front of her had failed. Ji Yinyin was really unwilling to accept this. Why did her trump card fail? Waha! The parrot saw the little lowly's gloomy expression and couldn't help but laugh crazily. "Little girl, you actually used such a lousy trick to threaten Chu Hang. This divine bird's disdain for you is like a torrential river, continuous and unending. It's also like 100,000 mountains, up and down. You're just a little brat. What do you know?" Ji Yinyin blinked her big eyes and challenged the parrot. "You're the snotty brat, you little girl." The parrot's spittle flew everywhere as it became extremely agitated. A disdainful smile appeared on Ji Yinin's small face. "Stupid bird, do you think I don't know your real age? If you transform into human form, you're at most an 11 or 12-year-old brat." The parrot exploded. This was its taboo. "Little lowly, you're bullshitting. Brat, you're the one who's farting. Bullshit. Bullshit." The parrot was flustered and exasperated. It roared, "Little lowly, don't think that this divine bird won't dare to deal with you just because you're Chu Hang's sister-in-law." Ji Yinin's buttocks were still burning with pain. She was afraid of being beaten again, so she remained silent in anger. Chu Yang observed for a while before intervening, "Little Lolita, can you tell me who asked you to disturb my enlightenment? Who can order this little lowly?" Ji Yinyin proudly raised her small head. Chu Yang suddenly smiled strangely. "Little Lolita, other than stripping you naked and hanging you up to dry, I've recently come up with a new trick." He pointed at Ji Yinin's small belly. "I plan to peel open your belly and stuff your little fire inside. Let's see if you can make a small fire." Demon. Ji Yinyan immediately screamed. She shuddered just by imagining the scene. I'll subdue you, little lowly. Chu Yang sneered. From now on, you'll answer whatever I ask you. Understand? If you don't understand, then make a small fire. Waraha. The parrot laughed strangely, causing Ji Yinyan to grind her teeth. She swore that she would concoct the parrot like this in the future. However, when Chu Yang's cold voice entered her ears, she quivered. Chapter 1297. Answer me. Who instigated you to do that? My sister. Are you sure? Slap, slap, slap. Following a series of crisp sounds, Chu Yang saw that Ji Yinyan was spouting nonsense. He raised his hand and gave Ji Yinyan another fierce beating. Only after Ji Yinyan was beaten until tears flowed down her cheeks did she tell the truth. No one ordered her to do that. It's just that this little lowly is used to being willful and unbridled. Chu Yang generally believed her, but he still had his doubts. This Ji Yinyan was obviously incomparably two-faced, but he still couldn't bear to be so ruthless to a little lowly. In the end, Chu Yang tied her up and said, I will go find your sister and ask for compensation. After saying that, he threw Ji Yinyan to the parrot for safekeeping, and at the same time, he sat down cross-legged and continued to cultivate. Soon, Chu Yang entered a meditative state. Then, a brilliant light bloomed from his body, and with a pop, a strange fluctuation was emitted from his body. It's really amazing. After being interrupted, he can still continue. Ban Sungyang and the other three were startled, and then violently shook. In their perception, thin lines faintly appeared again. Monster, he's really a monster. The four were completely convinced. At this time, they realized that the parrot, Kui Shinhu, and the other two were racing against time to comprehend such a rare opportunity. They immediately slapped their heads and secretly scolded themselves for being stupid. Ji Yinyan was also aware of such fluctuations. Her large eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. After a while, she said, This wild dog is much stronger than the flies by my sister's side. After being interrupted by this lowly's enlightenment, not to mention being able to continue, its perception is also so amazing. I can actually feel the law threads. It's simply heaven-defying. No, I have to make him my brother-in-law, and then I'll be henpecked. Then I'll take my revenge. Ji Yinyan also quickly calmed down and carefully sensed the law lines. She found that these law lines didn't seem to be the law lines of the heavenly spirit world, and her heart shook again. Rumble. Not long after, all of them were awakened by the sound of rumbling thunder. They opened their eyes and were about to kill when they realized that the sound of thunder was coming from Chu Yang's body. At this moment, a thick thunder cloud appeared at Chu Yang's lower abdomen. Thunder and lightning were shuttling back and forth in the cloud. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and thunder was about to descend. Below the thunder cloud, countless amounts of spiritual chi gathered and transformed into a parrot. It was about to trigger the thunder tribulation and undergo a metamorphosis. The appearance of the thunder tribulation in his body was a sign that his spiritual energy was about to transform into his magic power. The transformation of spiritual energy into magical energy was similar to the transformation of demonic beasts. A person's body was like a world of its own. Along with the comprehension of the laws of the world, great changes would occur within one's body. The transformation of spirit chi into magic power was when a cultivator had a great understanding of the laws of heaven and earth and formed a thunder punishment in their body. When the thunder punishment descended, the spirit chi would pass through the thunder punishment and become magic power. Spiritual chi could transform into a parrot, a snake, a fish, and so on. It was up to the cultivator's will. Some of the transformation of spiritual chi didn't necessarily require the descent of thunder. It could also be a carp leaping through the dragon's gate. In short, the transformation of spiritual chi into magic power was up to the cultivator's decision. Ji Yinin's mouth had already formed an O shape. Wild Dog Chu was only at the 8th level of the spirit stage, but he was about to transform his spiritual chi into magic power. She felt as if she had seen a ghost. How was this possible? He hasn't even reached the transcendent stage, and is already transforming his spiritual chi into magic power? Hiss. Chapter 1298. TSK, this divine bird's current state is already very good. I don't need to transform into any other bird. Only the parrot and Kui Shinhu were not surprised. They had already seen frightening things before. Rumble. The sound of thunder in Chu Yang's body was even more shocking. It seemed to be no different from the thunder in the world. The rolling thunder actually made Ban Sungyang and the other three's hearts palpitate. Buzz. Suddenly, Chu Yang's body shook violently, stirring up circles of ripples in the void. At this moment, the thunder punishment finally fell from his lower abdomen. The thunder punishment was like a giant axe falling down, causing the whole world to shake. This was the reason why Chu Yang's body shook violently. Waha, little cutie, you came at the right time. The parrot in Chu Yang's body laughed strangely in the face of the descending thunder punishment. Its voice was no different from the parrot's, causing the parrot to roll its eyes. It was speechless at Chu Hang's bad taste. As for Ji Yinyin and Ban Sungyang and the others, they were once again fiercely shocked. The parrot that Chu Yang's spiritual energy had transformed into was actually no different from a real living creature. This was too shocking. Generally speaking, because there was no martial spirit or visualization, the living creatures transformed from spiritual energy had no consciousness. This was the case for spiritual energy tribulation. Chu Yang was heaven and earth, and spiritual energy was living creatures. How could living creatures have the will of heaven and earth? Therefore, this scene once again overturned their understanding. Waha! Within Chu Yang's body, the parrot opened its mouth and swallowed the thunder. It laughed strangely and said, "Little cutie, more." There was no sound in the surroundings. Spiritual energy tribulation was no different from a real tribulation. It was very dangerous. Once it failed, the spiritual energy would completely collapse, and the cultivation would be lost. It would return to zero. Scree. Amidst the rumbling thunder, the parrot inside Chu Yang's body was bathed in the endless thunder. Finally, it started to change. Its entire body burst out with dazzling golden light. It suddenly transformed from a parrot into a golden-winged peng bird, and issued a high-pitched cry. One day, the great peng rises with the wind, soaring 90,000 li in the sky. The transformed golden-winged rock soared into the 9 heavens and charged at the thunder god. It wanted to swallow the entire thunder god into its stomach and challenge the might of the heavens. Is he really human? TSK, so what if it's a rock? There are so many of them, but it's just a chicken. 2 discordant voices emerged at the same time. The latter was, of course, the parrot. Ever since the eastern wilderness was established in the eastern continent, it had a deep impression of the wings of the heavenly rock turning into chicken wings. As such, it directly mocked it. As a parrot, it was proud and disdained to turn into a rock. Stupid bird. If the rocks hear that you look down on them like this, they will definitely kill you like a chicken. Ji Yinyin spoke with disdain, but her voice was slightly trembling. Chu Yang's spiritual energy transformation was too shocking. It could actually transform into a golden-winged rock. This meant that after his spiritual energy transformed into dharmic powers, the quality of his dharmic powers would be extremely shocking. For most people, this was simply impossible. However, what was even more shocking was that Chu Yang's spiritual energy transformation had not ended at all. This was at most half-step dharmic powers. Looking at this posture, Ji Yinyin realized that the wild dog obviously wanted to transform the golden-winged gold rock into a Kuan Peng. If everyone's dharmic powers were that of a demonic beast, and Chu Yang's dharmic powers were that of a Kuan Peng, then his dharmic powers were the most supreme existence. Screech amidst the rolling thunder god, the golden-winged rock once again let out a high-pitched cry. The golden light on its entire body converged within, and the golden feathers quickly turned black one by one. In the blink of an eye, just as the golden-winged rock was about to transform into a Kuan Peng, a loud roar suddenly came from afar. Roar. As if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting, the sound rushed over. The towering ancient trees in the forest were all broken, and large rocks exploded. The rolling sound waves swept across everything, and one could see a perfectly straight sound wave rushing over. Chapter 1299. Whoosh, whoosh. The wind howled. When the sound waves entered Chu Yang's ears, he was shocked. Instantly, the nomological threads that he sensed disappeared. The thunder punishment in his body also disappeared. The golden-winged rock had just transformed into a demon bird. Just like how a desolate demon failed to transform into a Kuan Peng, everything stopped. However, even though the golden-winged rock had transformed into a Kuan Peng, Chu Yang had not grasped the Kuan Peng's secret technique. Such a transformation only represented the transformation of his spiritual power. As expected, Kui Xinhu and the rest were glad that Chu Yang's spiritual energy did not collapse. However, they were still furious. With them like this, one could imagine how Chu Yang felt. Although the complete transformation of his spiritual power might not succeed, because he had not comprehended enough nomological laws, he could not tolerate such an interference. He remembered that the first time Yin had touched him, and this time, it was needless to say. The light within Chu Yang's body instantly dimmed. With a buzzing sound, he suddenly opened his eyes. Immediately, two beams of light shot out. Looking towards the direction of the darkness, he could faintly see a figure rapidly escaping. "Since you're here, do you still want to leave?" Dong. With a loud sound, Ji Yinyan clearly felt the ground sink a little. Following which, she was sent flying by a huge force. Dust entered her mouth and nose as she was sent flying. Apart from her, everyone else was the same. The huge explosion created a huge pit. Ban Sungyang and the rest, who were sent flying, looked at the deep pit in horror. When they looked at Chu Yang again, Chu Yang's figure was nowhere to be seen. What a terrifying power! What a terrifying speed! Chu Yang probably did not even use his full strength when attacking the four of them. If Chu Yang had used his full strength, like now, they were certain that they would have been killed in an instant. It was definitely wishful thinking to block half a move. At this moment, Chu Yang was already 1,000 feet away. His divine perception locked onto the person who had interfered with his cultivation. It was a slim figure with long hair. Obviously, it was a woman. The woman was frantically running away. "Can you still leave?" Chu Yang said coldly. Although his voice was low, the sound waves rolled and echoed throughout the world. Boom. When the woman heard the sonic boom, the strong wind behind her swept over. The strong wind hit her back, and she was suddenly startled. When she turned her head around, she was shocked to find that Chu Yang was already behind her. Her expression instantly changed, but she was very resolute. She turned around and suddenly turned around. Then, her entire body swelled up like a big ball. Her beautiful hair fluttered in the wind. Then, she roared. Roar. The sound wave was like a heavenly blade, cutting through everything. Everything in its path was destroyed as it blasted towards Chu Yang. Compared to before, at such a close distance, the woman's roar was many times more powerful. At this moment, heaven and earth seemed to tremble. Even before he had finished, Chu Yang felt that his flesh and blood were about to vibrate and resonate. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were about to shatter. A lethality similar to infrasound? Chu Yang was slightly shocked. Just as the woman was about to roar, a black beast appeared in the projection of his spiritual world. Its eyes turned scarlet, its body swelled like a meatball, and its fur stood up. It roared fiercely. It synchronized with the woman's movements and released such an amazing power. Roar, it's a roar. The woman's martial soul is a roar. Chapter 1300. The woman was stunned. She didn't expect Chu Yang to dodge her attack so easily. However, what was impossible about that terrifying speed? A fierce expression appeared on her face. She suddenly turned into a roar the size of a small mountain. When she opened her mouth, she revealed a mouthful of ferocious teeth. She took a deep breath, and in the blink of an eye, her stomach swelled to the size of a huge boulder. Roar. The heaven and earth shook fiercely again. The ancient trees and huge rocks in the surroundings were crushed soundlessly by the impact of the sound wave. The sound was extraordinarily loud, it was even more rumbling than thunder. The sound wave rushed out, and formed visible black sound waves in the air. They transformed into a divine spear, and bombarded Chu Yang directly. You still don't want to give up? Chu Yang didn't take it head-on. His figure flashed again and dodged in a wide range. He suddenly accelerated in the aftermath and arrived in front of the woman in an instant. His big hand covered her. The woman raised her head and transformed into a roar. She immediately swelled up again. Humph! Chu Yang snorted coldly. His big hand continued to fall. Sky-flipping seal. With a buzzing sound, the heaven and earth spun. The roar that the woman had transformed into was immediately reversed. It happened to roar, but it was aimed at the ground. Rumble. The ground was impacted by the sound wave and immediately exploded. Dust soared into the sky and completely covered the place. When the dust settled, the woman was upside down in a huge pit. Chu Yang was standing on her feet. Bang! The bottom of the pit exploded once again, revealing the woman's face. However, a surge of copious amount of force came through, and her entire body was immediately nailed into the pit. This repeated until the woman gave up. At this time, her hair was disheveled and her face was dirty. Her breath was weak. She had been humiliated by Chu Yang to the point that she didn't have any temper. Chu Yang carried her back to her original spot and threw her on the ground. He said coldly, "Do you want to say it yourself or do you want me to ask? You should have seen my means." When Ji Yinyan saw the woman in such a sorry state, she sucked in a breath of cold air. She was very sure that Chu Yang would not show any mercy to the fairer sex. She had better be careful. "I have nothing to say." The woman closed her eyes and waited for death. "Are you sure?" Chu Yang was slightly angered and coldly said, "I'll use you as a noise to practice my martial art. During this period of time, you'd better think carefully." He completely controlled the woman, and then chose a relatively far distance. He was a little wary of the woman's sound wave attack. After all, he didn't want to get hurt. After he sat down cross-legged, he sent a voice transmission to the woman, "Didn't you want to disturb my enlightenment? I'll let you disturb me until I vomit blood. Remember, when I reach the peak of enlightenment, you can scream. I'll let you scream as much as you want today." After saying that, Chu Yang closed his eyes and began cultivating. Not long after that, a peculiar fluctuation spread out from his body again. This time, the fluctuation grew stronger. The woman was stunned. Did Wild Dog really intend to do this? Why aren't you screaming? Hearing that, she was shocked. Enlightenment was so important. This Wild Dog actually wanted her to interrupt it. This was a complete madman. At the same time, she was also angered by Chu Yang. She directly used her roaring martial soul and let out a loud roar. Rumble. The sound waves rushed out like thousands of soldiers and horses galloping, charging over. Chu Yang was alarmed. The peculiar fluctuation on his body immediately disappeared. However, in just a moment, a peculiar fluctuation spread out from his body again. This time, it was as rapid as before, and it was incomparably strong. "Why aren't you screaming?" Chu Yang's voice was heard again. The woman was stunned. There was actually someone who specifically asked someone to interrupt her enlightenment. Even a madman could not describe this person. This person was definitely sick, crazy. Chapter 1301. Roar. The girl roared again, and then she repeated it over and over again until she almost collapsed. She had never seen such a monster before. During this process, she faintly realized that the madman was using her roar to constantly switch between the two profound concepts, and it shocked her to the point her eyeballs almost burst out of their sockets. How could there be such a person in this world? He should be immediately taken away by the heavens. It wasn't just her. Ban Sungyang and the other three, as well as Ji Yinyan, were all frightened. Such a thing was simply unheard of. "You're still not shouting." Chu Yang's voice sounded again. When it fell into Ji Yinin's ears, she immediately spat out, "You're simply a shameless bastard." Immediately, her face turned red. Chu Yang's divine senses were sharp. He immediately understood what the little lowly was thinking. He couldn't help but say in his heart, as expected of a black-bellied little lowly, "She can even connect this to that." However, he seemed to be able to connect the dots. He laughed evilly in his heart and coldly reprimanded her in a serious manner. "Little lowly, don't fill your mind with filthy thoughts." Waraha. The parrot also laughed strangely. "Heaven-blessed martial artist master, the little lowly's nature is like this. You have to understand. After all, this is her instinct. How could she not know?" In an instant, Kui Shinhu and Ban Sungyang's expressions became incomparably strange. The little lowly was really amazing. She was actually so proficient in this. The girl's face was flushed red. Her face was burning, and the redness even reached her neck. She had been shouting for a long time, and it was very rhythmic. This time, she really couldn't shout. It was too evil. The little lowly Ji Yinyan was also flushed red. She angrily glared at Chu Yang with her eyes wide open. She wanted nothing more than to immediately kill him. As for this topic, she was at a disadvantage. She absolutely couldn't continue. "Have you thought it through? When I finish cultivating, you better give me a satisfactory answer. Otherwise, you can imagine how I will deal with you." Chu Yang took this opportunity to invade the woman's mind, causing her to tremble and reveal a terrified expression. "He, it should be much easier to interrogate him later." Chu Yang sensed the woman's reaction and temporarily put the matter aside. He didn't say anything and instead circulated the spirit qi in his body, causing it to quickly circulate. His spirit qi was no longer pure spirit qi, but half-step spiritual power. When it circulated, it was much faster. It was as if every strand of spirit qi had a life of its own. With just a thought, the spirit qi would immediately circulate according to his intentions. Vigorous spiritual energy circulated in Chu Yang's meridians. After a while, Chu Yang finally made a move. Immediately, the spiritual energy was like an army, rushing along his meridians and converging in his palms. His hands abruptly came together at this moment. His 10 fingers danced like 10 fairies as they formed numerous peculiar seals. As he continued to form seals, the billowing spirit qi continued to converge in his palms. Soon, light balls about a foot in size were condensed in his palms. Both of them were seals, but one was formed using the heavenly spirit world's method, and the other was formed using the God's world's method. Chu Yang hoped to extract the essence of the two and remove the dregs. However, he used the most violent method, which was to directly merge the two together. During the collision, he removed the unsuitable parts. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. Chapter 1302. This was Chu Yang's plan. Through the collision, he would determine which of the two seals should be discarded and which should be retained, and then study them. The two balls of light quickly collided, and the spiritual energy began to distort. Vaguely, it seemed that something new was being formed. Waves of overbearing and tyrannical fluctuations swept out, causing the withered leaves on the ground around him to quietly shatter into dust. As time passed, the two balls of light completely fused together, and became smaller. At the very center, a light seal was formed, and it became clearer. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The balls of light finally dissipated completely, and only a light seal was left suspended in Chu Yang's palm. This was a new seal, and he had finally succeeded in condensing it through the collision. Whoosh! Chu Yang was very satisfied, and he exhaled 2 white breaths from his nose. Soon after, he flipped his palm, and the seal disappeared into his palm. He wanted to use his limitless body to test the power of these two seals. Boom! Chu Yang's body shook fiercely the moment the formation seal entered his palm. It formed an extremely strong rebounding force that suddenly surged out from his palm. It was like a violent mob that violently rushed into his meridians, wreaking havoc all the way. Not bad. Chu Yang's heart was filled with joy. Such a powerful rebound force showed the power of the seal. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A deep sound constantly came out from Chu Yang's body, shaking his flesh. However, it was all useless. The rebound force of the seal was like a huge hammer hammering his flesh. Chu Yang's body was a huge array, and it was used to test the power of the seal. After about half an hour, Chu Yang had a thorough understanding of the seal, and once again made improvements and perfected it, and then condensed a new seal. Buzz. In the pitch-black night, Chu Yang's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened at this moment. Looking at the seal floating on his fingertips, there was an extremely domineering fluctuation quietly rippling out, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl into a satisfied smile. With such a seal, the array setup would be even more amazing. Facing a similarly level 7 array master, he could absolutely crush them, and the array set up by him would not be easily broken. Xia Wanjin, Liu Yunpeng, and Xiao Chang'e, just wait for your death. Chu Yang smiled confidently. Originally, his strength was incomparably powerful, and he had many tricks up his sleeves. Now that his spiritual energy had become half-step Dharma power, and his array skills had a breakthrough, even if Xia Wanjin and the others were in the transcendence realm, Chu Yang absolutely did not need to reveal all his trump cards and expose his underwear to kill them. From now on, he could be at ease. However, before that, he wanted to see who was lurking in the dark and targeting him all this time, and who would suddenly give him a surprise attack. This venomous snake in the dark, Chu Yang was going to crush it to death. He stood up, and with a swoosh, he was in front of the woman in an instant. He said coldly, "Now, have you thought about how you're going to answer me? Remember," he added, "actually, it's not difficult for me to find out everything. I'm giving you another chance. If you don't cherish your life, then don't blame me for being merciless." The woman's eyes instantly revealed a look of horror. She could not imagine Chu Yang's methods. Just the "I'll let you scream" from before was enough for her to imagine Chu Yang's methods. As a woman, falling into the hands of such a person was even more terrifying than falling into the hands of a demon. "Please tell me your answer." Chu Yang knew the woman's fear of him, afraid that he would do something beastly to her. Although he did not know that he had fallen to such a state, he did not explain. "I hope that person won't see the sun tomorrow." His cold voice shook the woman again, and she finally surrendered. "I'll tell you, but I hope you can protect my brother's life." "No problem." Chu Yang hated these kinds of troubles, but he had to agree. Although he would know everything if he killed the woman and took her spirit, he hoped to use such methods less. After all, it was a little cruel. "Waha, then why don't you scream?" Just as the parrot laughed strangely, the woman was provoked and could not control herself, directly falling to the ground. Chapter 1303. This woman was called Jiang Fanchun. After she sorted out her emotions, she subconsciously signaled to Chu Yang with her eyes and pointed in a certain direction in the forest in the dark night. Chu Yang understood what she meant. "Don't worry, just say it. They can't leave." Jiang Fanchun almost fell to the ground again. "Since you know, you can't not say it." Even though they were a little far away, he could hear it clearly with his spiritual power. However, when she thought of Chu Yang's terrifying speed, she gritted her teeth and said, "Do you remember killing a member of the Gongsun family?" The Gongsun family? Chu Yang really didn't have an impression of it, but after thinking for a while, the scene when he first entered the Sky Academy appeared in his mind. He immediately said, "You're talking about Gongsun Liang and Gongsun Ying, right? But sorry, it's two people. Please be more precise. Don't let it affect my prestige." Jiang Fanchun had never seen such an indecent person since she was born. She immediately understood how this bastard in front of her could joke about such a shameful thing. "The so-called Gongsun Liang you're talking about definitely won't care much about that person, but Gongsun Ying will. You should understand what I'm saying." "Gongsun Long?" Chu Yang couldn't help but sneer. "I didn't go to him, but he came to me now. He's really tired of living." If Jiang Fanchun hadn't experienced what happened tonight, she would definitely spit in Chu Yang's face and say that he could crush her with one finger. However, she was not so sure now. The lunatic in front of her couldn't be judged by common sense. Even though Gongsun Long was a student of the inner yard and was already a half-step to the Nirvana realm, nothing was impossible for this lunatic. Gongsun Long shouldn't be here now, right? Chu Yang thought of his elder brother Chu Fei's arm being cut off, and the killing intent in his heart suddenly surged. Gongsun Long is a student of the inner yard, so he naturally won't participate in the assessment of the outer yard. Jiang Fanchun spoke again. "You should also remember what you did in the entrance assessment, right? What kind of person would do such a thing?" She didn't know before, but now she had the answer. Without a doubt, The lunatic in front of her could do it. He. Of course, Chu Yang remembered. He grinned. He had offended many people, but he did not care. At that time, he did not kill anyone. He was already very merciful. Sorry, I've hung a lot of people up to dry. Can you remind me? Jiang Fanchun couldn't help but shake his head at the arrogance of the lunatic. How great must one be to be able to be like this? His name is Azura. Shura. It sounds very powerful. Chu Yang pretended to be incomparably surprised. Soon after, he lifted Jiang Fanchun's chin and said with a smile, "Girl, you're already singing along with your husband. You have a bright future ahead of you." Jiang Fanchun was teased like a brothel girl, and he ground his teeth. She really shouldn't have followed this crazy person's train of thought. Luo Xiu was Luo Xiu, but he had to say something about Shura. It seemed that something had happened. Was all of this arranged by him? Chu Yang asked in detail. It was arranged by him, but there was another person assisting from the side. His name is Wen Penglong. Who has your brother now? Chu Yang hated troublesome things like saving people the most, and the moment he opened his mouth, Jiang Fanchun's expression dimmed, and revealed a worried expression. After that, she opened her mouth and said, "I don't know either, but I've secretly searched for him. He shouldn't be in the camp where Luo Xiu is. Girl, relax. Your little brother will be fine." Chu Yang laughed evilly, and lifted Jiang Fanchun's chin again, extremely frivolous. Chapter 1304. Whoosh. Jiang Fanchun's face had just turned red when he felt a gust of wind blow past his face. When he looked again, he couldn't see Chu Yang's figure. He could only hear the little lowly pouting her mouth and saying, "My brother-in-law is really a womanizer. He flirts with girls everywhere. He has brought disaster to many pretty daughters from small families. It's really a headache." Jiang Fanchun was in a mess. Chu Yang was already crazy enough. Now that he had such a crazy little girl by his side, wouldn't the world be in chaos? Boom. A loud sound was heard. In the dark night, there was a fight, but it was not in the direction that Jiang Fanchun had just pointed out. She was shocked. It turned out that the person secretly monitoring her had already changed his position. At this moment, at the other end of the forest, Chu Yang had already captured the soul of a middle-aged man in front of him. He briefly scanned this person's memory and suddenly sneered. He directly put this person's soul into the reincarnation gourd and directly refined it, completely obliterating it. Very good. Gong Sunlong, you want to investigate my background on behalf of Xia Wanjin and the others so that you can use them to kill me. But I'm sorry, you may be disappointed. From this person's memories, Chu Yang understood even more clearly. As for this middle-aged man, he deserved to be killed. Soon, his face could not help but become gloomy. This was because he vaguely understood that many people had similar ideas from this person's memory. These people had no enmity with him, but they wanted to do this only because Chu Yang was from the Eastern Wilderness, the wild dog they spoke of. For the nobility of the East Continent, you really have the spirit to sacrifice yourselves. How can I not fulfill your wish? Whoosh, whoosh. Chu Yang's figure flashed again and again. In the dark night, he was like a ghost and was very difficult to detect. He flew toward the two people hiding in the dark. Which wild dog? A dog's nose is very sensitive. I don't know who was unlucky just now. I think the two of us should quickly retreat. Otherwise, if we are bitten by wild dog, we will lose more than we gain. Don't worry. If it wasn't for that bitch's betrayal, how could wild dog succeed? After all, there are so many people hiding here. How can wild dog know who we are? Besides, if this wild dog was not killed, it would turn the world upside down in the future. A while ago, my family sent me a letter saying that the desolate slaves are already very restless. The person who had been hesitating felt the same way. He nodded and said, "After that wild dog appeared in Eastern Wilderness 002, a few of the desolate slaves in my family tried to rebel. However, they were tortured and killed in the end. Their lives were worse than death. Torture and kill." Chu Yang silently approached. After hearing their conversation, he finally understood why these people had taken such a huge risk to enter the so-called land of frost. Instead of searching for their own good fortune, they had wasted such a precious opportunity to cause trouble for him. The anger in his heart erupted like a volcano. Countless people in the eastern wilderness were being tortured in the East continent. Who is it? When the two people heard Chu Yang's voice, they were alarmed. However, they immediately saw their own bodies. At the same time, they saw each other's souls and were shocked. Their souls had been captured so easily. Wild dog. When they saw Chu Yang again, their souls were about to scatter. The sins of your family will be repaid with interest. I now announce that you have no chance of reincarnation. You can only become my pure soul power. Before the two of them could understand Chu Yang's words, they instantly found themselves drawn into an indescribable space. Immediately, their souls were slaughtered like pigs. They were dismembered and screamed miserably. However, in an instant, there was no sound. Chapter 1305. Swish, swish, swish. He attacked again and again, like a demon king in the dark night. In a short time, he captured many people and collected their souls. The more he learned, the gloomier his face became. Soul-melting sage, Fa Xiong sage, and Nirvana sage, you three old bastards also came to make trouble. Do you really think that my saber can't kill you? Wait and see, I won't let you be arrogant for too long. The three old bastards had the same idea as Gong Sun Long. If Xia Wanjin and the others couldn't do anything to Chu Yang, they would kill Chu Yang in this frosty land and eliminate all future troubles. Xia Wanjin, Liu Yunpeng, Xiao Chang'e, and Xiong Longxiang, this is how confident you are, Humph. Chu Yang immediately sneered. Xia Wanjin and the others were very arrogant on the surface, but secretly, they were very afraid of Chu Yang. They also sent people to investigate Chu Yang's background. Liu Yunpeng proposed to take action in 7 days, which was a big reason. The other three also agreed for the same reason. This was not what Chu Yang couldn't stand the most. After all, they were enemies, so it was not too much to ask for. What they couldn't stand the most was that those who had nothing to do with him, like the two people just now, wanted to kill him even though they had no direct interests. You all look down on me. Do you think I'm just playing tricks? Then I'll kill all of you today and use your heads to establish my prestige. I'd like to see how many people in the outer court of the Sky Academy will dare to attack me after tonight. Chu Yang's killing intent was overflowing. In the blink of an eye, he seemed to have transformed into a reaper in the dark night, silently harvesting lives while moving stealthily. When many people suddenly realized that they had died, they suddenly saw their own headless corpses and their heads hanging by dark threads. Before they died, they all had a horrified expression. Then, they discovered that their heads had become one of the pendulums, swinging and colliding like a pendulum, producing muffled noises from time to time. In the darkness of the night that was as dark as ink, a low and deep symphony of death was played. Ah, wild dog, you will die a horrible death. Wild dog, you will get what you deserve. In the end, the tranquility was completely shattered. In the dark night, screams and curses rang out from time to time. The tranquility of the night was like a mirror that was shattered into pieces. Not long after, Chu Yang returned. In his hands were black strings with heads hanging from them. They fell into the air, dripping with blood. It was as if a god of death had returned. There was not a single drop of blood on his body, and behind him was a trembling teenager of 14 or 15 years old. The pupils of Ban Sungyang and the other three suddenly shook. Their hearts were filled with fear, and their respect for Chu Yang increased. They were clearly lucky. Otherwise, their heads would also be carried back like this. What frightened them the most was that in such a short time, Chu Yang had already killed so many people. Jiang Fanchun looked at the swaying heads in the air. His lips were dry, and his body was trembling like a sieve. Sister. She suddenly saw the trembling young man and cried tears of joy, Xiaolong, swish. She flew over and hugged the teenager in her arms, comforting him, Xiaolong, don't be afraid. It's all over now. Everything is over. But in fact, she was scared to death. She never would have thought that the originally laughing and joking psychopath would do such a thing. It was true that when he did not move, The mountains would crumble and the earth would crack. Even ghosts and gods would be frightened. Waha, my lord is going crazy again. The parrot laughed, then complained, I say, Chu Hang, can you bring this divine bird along for such a flashy thing? Now, only the parrot could do this. Kui Shinhu and the other two saw the heads in Chu Yang's hands, and their hearts shook. They called Chu Yang the Eastern Wilderness, but they seemed to have never known what Chu Yang was carrying, and how heavy it was. At this moment, seeing these heads, they seemed to understand. Little lowly, go and stack up the heads. Whoosh! Ji Yinyin directly dodged backwards. Her reverence for Chu Yang had reached the peak, and she pleaded with Chu Yang with a pair of innocent big eyes. Chu Yang restrained his anger, and did not vent it on Ji Yinyin. With a shake of his hand, the heads immediately piled up. In this land of frost, he built a capital. He did not want to do this, but things did not go as he wished. He did many shocking things, but the result was still the same. And the more people he killed, the more he learned. There were too many people in the eastern wilderness like Cao Xiaomai, incomparably miserable, living a life worse than death. This filled his heart with anger, and there was no way to vent it. Why should one cherish reputation? Why should one be afraid of killing people? A man in a killing arena has the courage of a bear and the eyes of a wolf. If one was born a man, one would kill. One would not let a man's body bind a woman's heart. One would rather let 10,000 people gnash their teeth in hatred than let no one curse me. Chapter 1306. It was useless to build a Jingguan temple without anyone to watch it. Chu Yang's words were like spring thunder. He directly roared at the dark night, who dares to come and watch from the capital? Who dares to have an opinion? Stand out and let your grandpa Chu take a look. His roar was like thunder in the night, resounding in all directions. Countless night birds were startled and beasts were running in all directions. There was a commotion in the forest at night. Ban Sungyang and the others were shocked. They were also from the East Continent. If they accidentally annoyed Chu Yang, they might not be able to escape death. Ha ha ha, the East Continent is full of cowards. The divine bird roams freely, chasing the clouds in the sky, and bird droppings raise the East Continent. The parrot also said arrogantly, very dissatisfied with itself. I've really improved. I can even recite poems. Kui Shinhu and the other two were ashamed of their inferiority to such a parrot. It seemed that they could only be shocked that Chu Yang had killed so many people. But they didn't know why Chu Yang had killed so many people. So, they wouldn't cooperate with Chu Yang like a parrot. If they didn't deserve to die, how could they die? If they didn't destroy the courage of the East Continent, how could they establish the prestige of the Eastern Wilderness? When the three looked at the Jingguan temple again, they were no longer frightened, because there were probably countless people in the Eastern Wilderness wailing under the Jingguan temple. Perhaps there were also countless people buried in the Eastern Wilderness under the Jingguan temple. The night was silent, and no one answered. The parrot felt pity. After all, it felt that its performance was very good, but no one responded. It was as if it had hit a beautiful blow but didn't fall to the ground and die. As time passed, the night retreated silently, and the day came again. After a night of preparation, the matter was completely fermented. In a moment, many people came, and they saw the parrot standing there proudly with its saber in hand. The saber was transformed by spiritual energy, and so was the horse. Whoosh! Chu Yang, on the other hand, was sleeping soundly. He was looking for some sort of inheritance in the land of frost, but he didn't have the energy to pay attention to these things. If he didn't show off his might, and if he didn't deal with Xia Wanjin and the others, he would be encircled and put himself in danger. Last night, he was ready to do something ruthless. Now, it was up to the students of the outer court of the Sky Academy to see whether they would be angry or not after seeing Jingguan. To be precise, it depended on how much they hated and despised the Eastern Wilderness. Because they had chosen a place to spend the night, the place they were in now was very good. The ancient pine trees were verdant, tall and beautiful, and the spring water in the forest flowed into a large lake not far away. The surface of the lake was like a mirror, sparkling under the sunlight. From time to time, a bird would fly past, and occasionally, a fish would leap out of the water, as if it wanted to see the excitement on the shore. It was an excellent scenery, but the view ruined all the beauty. Many of the students of the outer court of the Sky Academy looked very gloomy after they arrived. Wild Dog was not only arrogant but also extremely dangerous. If they didn't get rid of him, who knew when their heads would be one of the heads in the capital? However, no one dared to make a sound. Everyone was afraid of this Wild Dog. Last night, the Wild Dog was able to kill so many people. He must have some tricks up his sleeve. Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud noise in the distance, and the world seemed to shake. Then they saw a young monk, sitting on a white elephant, break through the air and come close to them soon. Amitabha, good, good. Chapter 1307. It's the little Zen Master Fa Zhao. The little Zen Master Fa Zhao is here. This devil won't survive. Little Zen Master Fa Zhao hates evil the most. Wild dogs are no different from devils. They will definitely be suppressed by little Zen Master Fa Zhao. I heard that the little Zen Master Fa Zhao has reached the Nirvana realm, but he didn't enter the inner yard because he didn't think his Buddhist knowledge was profound enough. Wild Dog is doomed this time. Chu Yang heard everything about the little Zen Master Fa Zhao. Even without the people from the East Continent, he was keenly aware of how powerful the little Zen Master Fa Zhao was. He felt a great sense of crisis from the little Zen Master Fa Zhao, and Xia Wanjin and the others couldn't give him such pressure at all. Therefore, when the little Zen Master Fa Zhao arrived, Chu Yang opened his eyes immediately and then couldn't help but squint. Roar! A dragon's roar reverberated in the air. Not long after, a silver figure flickered in the distance, and a huge creature flew over. It was a silver flood dragon, and on the head of the flood dragon was a white-robed young man. He looked like an immortal, and in his silver eyes, there was a dragon-shaped shadow surging. Silver Dragon of the Holy Dragon Gang, he's here too. Wild Dog is doomed this time. Silver Dragon and the little Zen Master Fa Zhao are both low-key and have weak backgrounds. So they aren't famous. But they shouldn't be worse than Xia Wanjin and the others, especially the little Zen Master Fa Zhao. Nonsense. The little Zen Master Fa Zhao is the strongest in our outer yard. Xia Wanjin is no match for him. If the little Zen Master Fa Zhao wasn't devoted to Buddhism, he would definitely be one of the most outstanding geniuses in our Sky Academy. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Another group of people, led by an old man and a man in purple, came quickly. The Academy is also involved. Aren't they Grandmaster Sun and Master Meng of our outer yard? The Academy can't tolerate Wild Dog's beastly behavior. If Wild Dog doesn't die this time, I'll kill myself. Amidst the commotion, young Zen Master Fa Zhao finished reciting the rebirth mantra and put his palms together. Amitabha. After he uttered a Buddhist chant, his eyes suddenly sharpened. He stared at Chu Yang and said in a deep voice, "Almsgiver Chu, why are you so ruthless? You know me." Chu Yang smiled and then casually said, "Monk, I heard that you are the strongest in the outer court. Is that true?" Amitabha. Young monk Fa Zhao put his palms together again and said, "Almsgiver Chu, you still haven't answered my question." Chu Yang felt a lot of pressure facing this little monk. If he wanted to deal with a Nirvana realm cultivator, he would have to reveal all his trump cards. Therefore, he tried to communicate with the little Zen Master Fa Zhao. He said, "The reason why a mortal is none other than the fact that his back is in harmony with the world. Why did he have to seek outside? There is no other, but they are illusions, and they are greedy for illusions. Why is there a need to be greedy? There was no other reason. They mistook all the Dharma as the truth. Because of this, the more they are confused, the deeper they go. If they refuse to turn back, they will be reincarnated forever. Therefore, at the beginning, they must first understand all the Dharma, such as dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows, dew, and lightning. Unless they are false, everything is empty. In the end, they will gain nothing." After saying a lot, he pointed at the Jingguan and said to young monk Fa Zhao, "Monk, other than this Jingguan, what else do you see?" "Almsgiver, this Jingguan is not empty. Chu Yang directly retorted, "Monk, you saw the Jingguan, but have you seen the Eastern Wilderness?" Young monk Fa Zhao was stunned. Obviously, he knew the situation of the people in the Eastern Wilderness in the East Continent. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.